And we're live. Hello, hello, everybody. Big yawn. You just big yawn. Did I just big yawn? Did I just big yawn myself? Yes, I did. All right, let us get started. Make sure that all of my audio is correct. Cool. Oh, maybe that should be a little bit louder. There we go. Yeah, a little bit louder. Last night was wild. What happened last night? Oh, you and Angels use versus Angels and Tron. That's crazy. I don't even know who I don't even know who Tron was, or who Tron is. Who is Tron? Monkey Boy, were you there too? Oh, it was that. Yeah, I was just scrolling by. I didn't stick around. Let's talk to Dylan Real 7. Why sound weird? I don't know. Dylan, Dylan Real, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, atheist?
That's a weird way to start a conversation. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Dylan, do you mind just giving me 1 sec? All right, we're all set. So Dylan, do you believe in God?
Yeah, Jesus Christ is Lord.
Okay, so I don't. Like I said, I'm an
sad.
atheist.
I pray you come to him.
So why should I believe in the God that you believe in?
Because your soul will be filled, you'll have happier, your soul will be higher, you'll be living at a better frequency.
Those sound
You'll be
like
connected to your
reasons that
parents pretty much.
That sounds like it might be reasons why I might feel better if I did believe in God, but it doesn't sound like it's a reason to explain why belief in God is justified, or why one might think that there is such a God that exists, actually.
Well, first of all, you have to know what we live on. I mean, you can't be a glober first of all. If you think you live on a rock in outer space, you're never going to come to Jesus Christ.
Blitz audio not great. What is wrong with my audio? Sorry, 1 sec. Everything's you. Let me just try wiggling the cable. Maybe I'll try resetting it. Testing.
Yeah, bro,
Can you
you're
hear me?
good.
Oh wait, hold on. But now my audio's all sorts of wrong. There we go. Okay, should be okay. Okay, well, I don't know why the audio is funny, but anyway, so I definitely am using the correct mic. But so, can you repeat what you were saying? What your claim was?
Yeah, as long as you're not a heliocentric model guy, you don't think Earth is a globe
you're
in
a
outer
flat earther.
space.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, you must know true cosmology to come to God. If you don't even know what you live on, you're
Dylan,
going to
the
be
troll.
lost.
The troll is not a good bit.
It's not a troll. You actually live on a flat, stationary plane with a firmament above us and the sun
I'm
and
sure.
moon
Now,
are
why should I
local.
believe that a God exists?
Well, we use a Christian timeline. Evil people do rituals to demons talked about in the Bible. But you should believe in a God because you'll feel better. You'll be literally the highest version of yourself.
That's cool. I am interested in knowing why it's true that God why it's true that God exists.
Because when you're connected to the Creator, you're connected to all His goodness. Because literally, good flows from God. So if you don't want to be connected to goodness, it's not my fault.
That explains perhaps why I should believe in something. It doesn't explain why the thing that I should believe in corresponds to something in reality. Do you understand the distinction?
Okay, bro. I get it.
Okay, so why should I think that there is a God that exists in reality?
You don't have to. You can think whatever you want. I mean, you can think whatever you want.
Why do you think that there is a God that exists in reality?
Well, I know there is a God because I'm in natural reality. I'm not in fairy tale land like you.
Okay. So you just are going to dodge the question?
I mean, if this is dodgeball, I don't want to get hit.
Dylan, how old are you?
23. Just because I'm a 5 in numerology, just.
And what year were you born?
Young. 2003, dude. Like, damn, do the numerology if you want.
Okay. Well, look, if you don't want to have a conversation, if you don't want to actually justify your position, then that's fine.
You're
I guess you can
stupid
leave.
atheist, dude. You
So
need to become a flat earther.
Dylan, do you know what a W-2 is?
No, dude, just because I don't know your dumb W-2 doesn't mean.
Okay, then you're like 16. 16 max, by the way. The W-2 question's a really good one. All right, let's talk to... Oh, actually, we have from Bacon and Bush. I don't know why it's not sending this over. But Bacon and Bush, thank you for being a 6-month member. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It is very wholesome. All right, let's bring up... You don't know what a W-2 is? Yeah, if you're not American, then you won't know. But if you're an American, then you will know. And he was American. Let's bring up Burger Boy and Jun. Burger Boy, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. Burger Boy and Jun. That's an interesting name. Do you believe in God?
I do.
Okay.
And,
I don't. Why should I?
so in my studies, I'm an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
The more I've studied science and what have you, I don't know. I think the framework of that the universe exists and just points to there being a creator. Obviously, there is the bias of I was born into a religious family, a religious society. But even with my studies, I think like the further we delve into, physics, chemistry, anything, the framework, even going down to math, the framework just points to something. It's kind of like finding a computer, and you see the intricacies of a advanced chip in the computer, and you say, well, can't exist by itself. Some engineer, some firm, some company designed and created this. So that's how I see the universe. And I don't know. I think that's kind of, especially since you're a doctor in physics, I guess if you keep going in and in and in, what do you see?
I don't know what you mean, what do I see if you keep going in? I think I see a world that has some orderly things that are designed or built or created by people, and we see some orderly things that seemingly are not created by any sort of being with intention. I think that there's probably examples of both that we can find in nature, of complicated things that are completely natural and of complicated things that are designed. So it just seems like it's kind of a wash.
Well, I mean, if you look at I'm saying when I say go in and in, I mean the concepts of physics that you explain on your videos and your channel.
Yeah, how does that point to a creator?
Because the harmony that exists amongst everything in the universe, especially if you look at like a biological cell. The harmony
that exists?
Yeah. Would you say the universe is chaotic or harmonious? Because, I mean, we exist.
It seems like that these are not... I mean, like, much of the universe is very chaotic, right? In fact, arguably the vast majority of it is. Like, you have stars exploding, you have, like, complicated star births where you have, like, 8 stars forming at once, and then, like, 6 of them are ejected from galaxies, forced to wander the cosmos alone. Like, there's tons of chaos in the universe, so it's not clear to me.
I guess when I say harmony... I guess when I say harmony,
we're talking about...
the laws of physics that everything follows, the harmony in that there are laws that everything is bound to.
Well, that presupposes that laws are enforced rather than merely descriptive, right? And the distinction here being that, like, when we talk about laws in a governmental context, what we mean is that, like, some group of people decided that there's a rule, and if you break the rule, then something bad happens to you, so you don't break the rule. But when we talk about physics, we're not really talking about that kind of thing. When we talk about physical laws, what we're really talking about, or, what I'm positing is what we're talking about, is something like we observe regularities in nature, we observe patterns, we observe features, and then we write down formulas that seem to capture those regularities or those patterns.
Absolutely.
But then there's a distinct causal relation there, a distinct grounding relation. Namely, it's the patterns that ground the laws, not the laws that ground the patterns. And so in the case of the latter, where the laws ground the patterns, I can understand why you would think that there's a designer that's needed. But in the case where it's the former, where the patterns ground the laws, it seems like that this is just a mere description. There's nothing that's particularly design-oriented about them.
I guess even by mind you, even though I'm religious and I believe in God, that leaves the room for evolution as well. And I think even with the advent of life and evolution to evolve as the creatures that we are today, I think there's something to that as well. I don't think you have to be religious and say, "Oh, evolution is no, evolution is real. That is 100%." And I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
I mean, if evolution is real, then certainly God isn't required to play a role in it, because evolution perfectly well accounts for, you know, the observations that we have about the life on Earth.
Can he be a director of the evolutionary process, kind of like in a movie set, right? You have the writers, you have the whatever, but like ultimately,
then it wouldn't really be evolution, right? Like the way that evolution happens is via essentially random processes. If they're not random processes, then it's not really evolution, or rather, I should say, it's not evolution by natural selection.
I guess I have like more points to say, but being on TikTok, I'm like, damn, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I could see where, yeah, it's. I usually have something prepared to say, but yeah, I'm at loss for words right now. Not that I'm saying like I agree with you in the sense of that. I mean, like I don't have a formulated argument because I just hopped on TikTok real quick. I'm just
okay.
Kind of going.
Well, if you want to stick around and listen, by all means. But I'm gonna let you go, Burger Boy, because it sounds like we ran the course. Thanks for being here. All right, let's bring up our next guest. I want to double check something. Okay, let's bring up Mr. Rabbit. Is that the Mr. Rabbit? The one and only Mr. Rabbit?
Hi, everyone.
Mr. Rabbit, how's it going?
Wow, that goes super. What about you?
I'm doing okay. Mr. Rabbit, I don't believe in God, do you?
Well, I won't call myself a complete believer, but I just don't reject the idea that there is one.
Okay, well, if you don't believe in one, then how are you going to convince me to believe in it if you don't believe in it?
Well, not really that I don't believe in God, but just that, well, basically, I don't really understand the whole purpose of this stream, you know.
Okay, then you can watch. You can watch and you'll find out. I spoke with Abdi yesterday. Abdi is a... I feel like I spoke with Abdi yesterday, and, well, I did, but I just don't remember
what's up?
why.
Do you remember me?
Yeah, well, I remember your name. I don't remember... You wanted to come up to talk about, like... Well, so you came up on the MAGA one, and I guess you wanted to change to talk about the God one, so...
Yeah, is there anything wrong?
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to remember exactly how the conversation went.
Yeah.
And how old are you, Abdi?
Last time. I'm 18, still 18 years old.
What's a W-2?
I don't live in America, is that fine?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I live in Europe, Sweden.
Yeah, I can tell from the wind. Okay, Abdi. What year were you born?
Okay. Sorry, 2008.
Okay, all right, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, what would you need to, like, obviously there's no, like, proof for or against God. What, like, would you need to see to, like, need to hear to believe in God, or, like, what's the...
If I knew,
what do you personally...
I would already believe, right?
Okay. So...
Like, if there was some argument that would convince me, and I knew of this argument, then I wouldn't be having this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, so you don't really know. Okay, that's fair. I would say, like, I believe in God because there are certain things I think, like, just theism has a way better explanation for compared to, like, atheistic beliefs.
Like what?
And I would like to, I don't know, I really have to present it, like, in an argument form, so I think I'm just gonna, like, name specifically.
It can be informal, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm thinking specifically of two things, which I'm not satisfied with how, like, all the atheistic views explain them. I'm thinking of specifically, number one, the necessity of, or, like, the explanation of, like, psychophysical harmony, and then number two, I'm thinking of, like, the uniformity of nature. I don't see how atheists justify or, like, explain it in a satisfactory way for me. I think under the theistic, like, worldview, I think it's way more explanatory. Like, it makes more sense. So, like, for example, obviously, what I would say, like, as, like, I believe in God, I'm gonna say, like, yeah, I believe, like, God is rational and a good God, and he has reasons to create. For example, for the psychophysical harmony one, he has reasons to create, conscious beings that, don't like
But why does he have
touch
those
fire
reasons?
and immune. Yeah, because I think he has obviously got, or the attributes I believe I put him in are like, he's rational and he's all good and he's all powerful, so he has reason to create us the way we are right now.
So the the primitive example, or the kind of quintessential example of psychophysical harmony is, we touch a hot stove and we don't like it, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah, and I understand,
what is God's reason for thinking, or what is God's reason for instantiating us so that when we touch a hot stove, we don't like it?
Yeah, so the way I view it is that he's rational, and so like if we were to actually like it, then everyone would just die, right? Like if we touch fire and we're like, I like this, we
So
jump in the fire, we die.
Wouldn't
I don't see how.
Wouldn't an evolutionary account do exactly the same thing?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of. I was like, wait, evolution does this. I'm thinking of like mutations, and there are people that didn't have psychophysical harmony, and they obviously died, and there were others that did have psychophysical harmony, and they obviously survived, and that's why we're here, right? Under the evolution theory, I only have one issue with it. I don't see why, like in the first place, what caused us to have what was the psychophysical necessity for us to have that harmony? Because I understand the biological necessity. Obviously, we're just gonna die. I just don't understand the psychophysical necessity. Like, what? Just like in the evolution theory, is it just I'm just kind of confused. Like, what caused it?
Are you saying
what caused us to have it?
Why is it the case that are you suggesting that evolutionarily it could be the case that we touch the hot stove, we like it, but we still pull away?
No, we touch it, we like it, and that's just how everyone is. I don't see what's
I mean, it seems kind of obvious to me. I guess I just don't understand the objection. The point is that if you touch a hot stove, you're doing damage to your body, right?
Of course.
And if you're doing damage to your body, maybe you'll lose sensitivity in your fingertips, or maybe you'll get an infection that will end up killing you or whatever. So it just seems like if you like something, you're more inclined to do the thing. That's probably what it means to like something. And so if you touch a stove and you like it, then you're more inclined to do damage to your body, which just means that you're less likely to pass on your genes, and so you're less likely to pass on that tendency. I don't see what
I get this part. Yeah, I get this part.
So what's the objection?
Yeah, so why isn't everyone like that? Why isn't everyone like that? Why is it only just a specific couple, i.e. us? Why is it only us that have the psychophysical harm? Like, why doesn't everyone?
Oh, you mean like
World,
animals?
no, literally, every organism. Why doesn't every organism, what's the explanation for why some organisms have the harmony there?
What example of organisms can you come up with that don't have psychophysical harmony?
No, there are none, obviously. I'm pretty sure but I'm just wondering what caused us to have
so to be fair, there are probably animals that don't have psyches at all, in which case, of course, they don't have psychophysical harmony, or not animals, but organisms. Like bacteria probably don't have psychophysical harmony because they don't have psyches. they don't enjoy, or they don't find pleasure in things, they don't find displeasure in things. But it seems like the reason why psychophysical harmony exists is because for those beings that have sensation, that have experience, then it would just follow that if they enjoy that experience, then they would tend to do the thing more. And if the thing that they enjoy is harmful, then the ones that have those experiences and enjoy them would die out. So
yeah.
It seems like this applies to every. It seems like this applies to every organism.
Not really. I think I'm not. I wanna. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not that good rhetorically. I'm trying to get my point better across. So yeah. I'm sorry if there's a lot of wind. Wow. There's a lot.
Are you on top of a mountain?
Something no, I'm just on a bench, but
okay.
I hope that's fine. But okay, let me try and phrase it better. So yes, there are people that there are some people that don't have the psychophysical harmony and they die. Then there are people that have the psychophysical harmony. Okay, great. But why? Why do we have that?
Why do they die?
No, why do we, the ones with the correct the harmony, where we touch bad things, we get hurt,
because if our parents didn't have that feature, our parents wouldn't have survived.
Yeah, no, I'm asking, in the first place, why do they have it? I'm just curious.
Oh, are you asking how did this property arise at all? Why is it that there's an association of pleasure or displeasure at all with touching a hot stove?
Why couldn't everyone have been displeasured?
Why couldn't? Well, so the way that I see this is, and this is where my physicalist interpretation comes in, is that I see these kinds of these kind of psychic's not the right word, these kind of mental states. I see these kinds of mental states as just abstractions of some physical thing that's happening. And so, if your brain has a certain kind of feature, then what we would mean is we would interpret that kind of feature as pleasure, given some stimulus, or displeasure given some stimulus, or whatever. That's just what those things are. They are brain features, brain structures, or chemical processes or whatever. And so, if it's the case that the thing that causes pleasure or displeasure is driven electrochemically in the same way that the thing that causes your desire to pull away or your desire to stick around, then it seems like the evolutionary tendency to select for systems that would pull away from a hot stove is the exact same evolutionary tendency, or the exact same evolutionary mechanism that would produce a tendency to not like that thing. Those the desire to pull away and the experience of pain seem like they're the same thing. And so if they are the same thing, then the evolutionary selective pressure on the desire to pull away would just naturally give rise to the displeasure that you experience.
Okay, so you're basically saying that the existence of psychophysical harmony explains why we wouldn't have. Wait.
What I'm saying is that the psycho part, the mental part of psychophysical harmony, is just a not an abstraction. It's like an emergent property from the perhaps purely mechanical or purely chemical process or drive to pull away from something that's causing you damage. So, for example, bacteria, right? Bacteria have they have stimulus responses, right? So if you put a dangerous chemical near that bacteria, it'll still pull away, but it doesn't have a mental state to associate that pulling away with. All I'm saying is that because we have mental states, those mental states are just associated with, or those mental states are not just associated, but they are the tendency to pull away.
Okay.
They're the way that we interpret that tendency.
So your logic is basically that the mental state is kind of irrelevant, and we would move away because we wouldn't because it causes harm to us physically.
Yeah. Roughly what I'm saying. Are you familiar with the idea of a philosophical zombie?
Not really, no.
So a philosophical zombie is a thought experiment. I don't think that they exist, but suppose that they exist. It's this idea of something that is identical to humans in every way, but has no internal experience. So it still responds in every way that you would expect it to respond. It still can still have conversations with you, but it's more of a machine. You gets an input, gets an output, but nothing's going on behind the eyes, right? That's the idea. And so what I'm suggesting is that even if you were a philosophical zombie, that there's nothing going on behind the eyes. There's just machine inputs, outputs, and so on. That organism would still respond the same way to the stove. It would still pull back, just like how a bacteria pulls back when there's a dangerous chemical nearby.
Okay, got it. Just a quick thing there.
Yeah.
Then why do we have individuals? I'm gonna go on the topic of a bit of mental health here. If this was the case, then why do you have people that do the opposite and actually want to get hurt?
Yeah, so I think that this is actually probably best explained by naturalism. So there are some parts of there, and I'm trying to remember my neurology here, but I might get this wrong. My understanding is that there are essentially two different. My understanding is that one of the places that we process pain is very, very close in the brain, structurally, very, very close in the brain to the place that we process pleasure. And so if something goes, perhaps not wrong, but if something is slightly different in the brain as a result of, brain development in the womb or whatever it might be, maybe those wires get crossed, right? And so it's possible that someone takes pleasure in something that would normally be painful. And if that's the case, in a normal situation, 100,000 years ago or 500,000 years ago, that might be the kind of thing that gets somebody killed, right? But we don't live in that society anymore. So those people can survive because not a lot of things kill us these days. We're not really in imminent danger of being killed all the time.
Yeah, so the thing here...
Yeah, go ahead. No, you're good.
Yeah, so the thing Yeah, so the thing is here, when you say that, wouldn't that kind of be like against the idea of like the philosophical zombie that does something like input output regardless of like what the mental state is? But then now you're saying that like
No, the
our
point
mental
is
state.
so the point is the philosophical zombie could in principle have its wires crossed, and then it would seek out those things that would normally cause a typical human pain. Just like how that happens for people who have, like, you know, burn kinks. I'm sure they exist.
Okay, so let me try and recap to make sure I'm understanding you. You're basically saying that, well, I obviously just said like God is rational, so he has reasons to create this, but you're saying that evolution has reasons to create this because that's just the way we like mutation, and if we didn't, then we wouldn't be alive right now.
Yeah, and in fact, I think you actually brought up a good point that there are people who have, you know, I don't want to say they have their wires crossed because it's just probably like a natural human variation, but there are people who take pleasure in things that most of us would find are painful. There are people who don't experience pain at all. Like there is no psychophysical harmony between touching a hot stove and experiencing pain. Like this is a well-known disorder, or I don't know if it's disorder. It's a well-known phenomenon. It's rare, but it's well-known. And so if it were the case that we were produced by a rational mind that desired this psychophysical harmony, you would expect that this never happens. But the fact that it does happen indicates that it's, you know, a faulty but reliable natural process.
So
Or
you're
an
basically
imperfect
thinking it's
but reliable.
against the idea of God? I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's against the idea of God because I don't think God necessarily has any like necessarily creates everyone flawless. That's why, you know, cancers and stuff exist and there are people with diseases. So
Right,
I
but
wouldn't say
so-
like
so
I think
why
it's
would it-
different.
Look,
Yeah, I
so-
think it's the fact like them
So
having
is
a
the claim
fault.
is the claim that God gives each individual psychophysical harmony? Or is the claim that like psychophysical harmony is something that God kind of gave to like the original humans and then kind of like let it play out? Or what's the claim here?
Wait, just 1 second. Can you repeat
Sure.
that real quick? I'm sorry.
Is the claim that it is so? Is the claim that each? Let me back up. Is it your view that like the mind is like a separate ontological entity from the brain or from the body?
I would say yeah. I would say
Okay.
no, I would say like I'm a dualist.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So on the dualist view, psychophysical harmony requires that God has instantiated some set of psychophysical laws that connect the mind to the body.
Yeah.
Right? And so the existence of people who have the wrong connection, meaning that perhaps they associate pleasure with something that would typically be pain, something that would typically be damaging to the body, indicates that the law is not inviolable. That
Yeah,
the law
the
can be
response here, I
violated,
don't think.
which means it's not a law.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the response here, I don't think natural laws, or sorry, this specific law needs to necessarily be like flawless. I think.
Why would God put in place a non like okay, let me rephrase. It's just not a law if it has exceptions, right?
No, it's not a law that has exceptions. So when we say the psychophysical laws, that's a good question. But yeah, like why does? I wouldn't say it's like. Are you proposing that it's like inconsistent from like God?
Yeah, I would think that if God's imposing a law, then it should always hold. If it doesn't always hold, then it's not a law.
Well, it is. What are the laws? I'm pretty sure they're.
I mean,
I don't think
like,
necessarily it's because one
it's
individual
super
goes like
vague.
against the laws.
It's super vague, but roughly the idea is that like there's an imposed relationship between what the mind experiences, say the mind experiencing pain, and the body
Yeah, isn't it
experiencing
caused
damage.
just from like a disorder?
Yeah,
Isn't that just like that would
Right,
be
right.
the result of like a dysfunction or defect?
Right.
So I don't think that goes against the laws.
But that's only well explained if you think that the mind arises from the body.
The mind arises from the. When you
Because
say that, what do you mean?
the defect is like a physical defect, right?
Yeah,
For people with kinks,
would-
it's not a
yeah,
defect.
not
It's just a normal,
necessarily, but sure.
normal human variation. I mean, so like,
I wouldn't
so the
Sure, for
let me
sake
look
of
something
argument.
up really quick. There's a brain condition or brain difference where you can't feel pain. Let me just
I
look
don't
it up.
think this
Just
is
how-
like
so okay. So there's something called congenital insensitivity to pain. This is it's like it's a documented thing. This is explicitly caused by specific known gene mutations, right? Apparently, there's a gene mutation. Like you could have a gene mutation in SCN9A, and if you have a gene mutation in that gene, then you will have no pain sensing nerves, so you will not experience pain whatsoever, right? And so, if it were the case that psychophysical harmony or that the existence of psychophysical harmony was explained by laws imposed connecting the mind to the body, then it seems like you shouldn't be able to account for the presence of people who have no
Yeah, I'll put the
mental
stop here
experience of
because
pain without.
yeah, what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm thinking here is that the difference is I'm referring specifically to disharmony, so that they feel pleasure, but I wouldn't say the insensitivity of pain necessarily correlates to them not having a harmony, because I would say like if it's like a pleasure, so if they feel like a pleasure from pain, then yes, I would say that's a disharmony that like directly violates the psychophysical laws. But and then yeah, that's pretty much it. But then the thing I'm still a bit stuck on is why in the first place is not every single individual that has, like, why doesn't what's the explanation for why we don't currently, like, why we evolved in a way where we have psychophysical harmony, not psychophysical disharmony? And you're saying that, well, the ones with psychophysical disharmony just died. Well, sure,
Yep.
I can accept that. But then the people with psychophysical harmony, what caused them to have psychophysical harmony? I'm just like...
So you're asking why do they have psychophysical harmony rather than nothing at all? So a naturalistic explanation is merely that there is no psychophysical harmony because there's no psyche.
Really?
Yeah, and
you don't think it exists?
What I'm saying is like a physicalist interpretation. Under a physicalist interpretation of the mind, i.e., that the mind is not this different kind of substance, then there's no separate kind of mind that needs a connection to the body, because the mind just is part of the body, and so it has a direct the mind being arising from the brain just has direct access to evolutionary pressures.
Yeah, so I agree with that, but then we go back to what you said about like the philosophical zombie. Like, then why does disharmony exist in the first place? Because then you're proposing we have like... I don't think
that philosophical zombies are possible for that reason, by the way.
Yeah, obviously, but I know that's just like an example. But I'm saying, like, you're saying that if the mind is not correlated to the body at all, was it just random that we happen to have?
No. The point is that the mind is exactly arising from the brain.
When you say arise, what do you mean?
In the same way that like Microsoft, like Microsoft Word arises from like the CPU hardware.
Yeah. So basically, okay, yeah. So our mind. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. You're saying that we develop psychophysical harmony through just like existing. So, for example, let's say we have an organism and through living, they see that.
The contention is that psychophysical harmony doesn't even exist. Psychophysical harmony implies that there is some non-trivial connection between the mental substance and the physical substance, right? And that these are two distinct things.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you don't hold the view that there are mental substances, that the mind is merely just emergent from the physical, then there just is no such thing as psychophysical harmony. That's not something that needs to be explained.
Okay. Yeah.
These are just physical laws.
I think it's fair to like agree to disagree then, because I wouldn't say there's any proof that psychophysical harmony exists or doesn't exist. I'm just quite like from the extent of my knowledge, I thought it was like the scientific consensus it does, but I guess like. Yeah, then I guess that's fair.
I don't think that I've never seen that referred to in the scientific literature. I mean,
really,
but I think that this is not a thing that scientists are talking about. This is the thing that philosophers are talking about. I think the existence of genes that, if they have a mutation, prevent you from feeling pain. I think that's I actually think that's fairly compelling evidence against the dualism that gives rise to psychophysical harmony. Like I think that probably, like, it's of course not proof, but I do think it's compelling evidence.
Because it's a defect.
Okay, but if
dualism doesn't say everyone is flawless.
I'm aware, but the point is, if God is instantiating a connection between the mind and the body, and that connection is just a law of the universe, then it should always be the case that when certain things happen to bodies, that should always be connected to something happening in the mind. But if you change the body in a certain way, apparently that connection can be broken.
Okay, well, I think, I wouldn't say necessarily, because I think pain is a bad example, because pain is like an internal subjective experience. I think something else where I should think of a better example then. I wouldn't say necessarily that contradicts the idea of like dualism, because pain again is a like internal
It
like
doesn't contradict
just
it,
like
but
a
it's
subjective
evidence against
experience.
it. It's evidence against it, right? Like, because, you know, this is the kind of thing where you have a physical change that is somehow that is somehow directly changing the way that the mental states behave.
Directly changing elemental. But so you're basically saying it's like a violation of the laws or like the theory?
What I'm saying is that this is unexpected if the psychophysical laws are distinct from physical laws.
Okay, I'll actually don't quite know. I'm not that like well versed into this topic.
That's fine.
That's fair. I'll look into that definitely.
Okay.
But what I'm actually like a bit more curious about, because I did look into this a bit more. I haven't even like looked at the psychophysical one was just like of like ChatGPT, but this one I've actually like gone Google around a bit.
Okay.
The second thing I said, like uniformity of nature. This one I don't quite understand from like an atheistic perspective. Like what is the like I'm just thinking under theism it would be more probable.
Why?
Yeah, because well, okay, like if we look at the justification for the existence of like uniform, like how do you believe like gravity will work tomorrow?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, why?
Are you asking why I have that belief? Because, you know,
Yeah.
it worked yesterday and today.
Okay, so you're saying like the past
Not necessarily, but
so
it
you're
does
basically giving
inform.
like an inductive. You're giving like an
Yeah.
inductive reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, because what if I ask you like, let's say you have a coin and I flip that coin 1,000,000 times and it lands on heads. Is my next time, is the probability that it's gonna land on heads increase?
Your belief that it will land on heads again should be very, very high. Yeah.
But mathematically, that's just false.
Well, so look, if you flip the coin 1,000,000 times and it lands on heads every single time, then you should adjust your priors that it's a 50-50 chance, because the probability of that happening 1,000,000 times in a row, while it was 50-50 each time, it's completely in the floor. The probability of that happening is so low that it's more likely that you're hallucinating, or that the coin is rigged, or that it has heads on both sides, or, you know, whatever it might be.
Okay, I think I'm gonna stop here, because that's pretty much illogical. Well, obviously I'm giving like a scenario, like a hypothesis here where we have like a just. Well, like I'm having like a scenario where like there's obviously like heads and tails and it's being flipped equally, or like just.
Okay, so you're presupposing.
You're saying that
so in the hypothetical that you're giving, you're saying, okay, we know for a fact that the coin is fair. We know for a fact that, you know, we're not hallucinating or something like this.
Yes. Like just
Well,
fair
if we know those for a fact, then we know those with more certainty. Then we would know that the what am I trying to say? Then we would the credence of those would be 100% regardless, right? And so that's presumably that's what it means to like be 100% certain about it. Your credence in that should be at 100%. So regardless of how much evidence you have against that, you could never lower the credence using any sort of Bayesian reasoning. So you'd still come to the conclusion that it would be 50-50, but that's because you have so much certainty in these other features, right?
So what is your certainty with gravity then? That
it's not 100%, it's just close.
So the difference between the analogy I gave and like gravity is that, so you still hold the belief though that if something happens in the past is going to represent the future.
No,
generally,
I think that you can. I think that the world that we live in, or perhaps the psychology that we have, forces us to reason using experience and memory about, or to form beliefs about what will happen in the future. I think that's just part of human psychology. I don't think that this is like. I'm not saying that I've solved the problem of induction. But I think what I'm saying is merely that that's the only way that we know how to reason about things. Reason about the empirical world.
Based off your like personal experience.
Well, or things
like,
that you've read, or you know, things that you've learned, or yeah.
Okay. Well, if that's why you believe in gravity, why can't I say the same for like? Why can't it be the same for God? Why can't I say like, hey, why don't you go and read about God and get that experience and understand it, etc. If you're using the same logic for like gravity.
Well, so you can absolutely read about it and you can understand it. You can have those views. But the point is, the distinction here is that gravity is something that we've tested over and over again, right? Like we have this in some sense past empirical evidence for gravity, and it's stood the test of time. But I'm not convinced that the evidence for God is particularly compelling. So like if somebody had a theory about, if back in Newton's day, Newton wrote all this stuff about gravity, and then we tested it in the modern day and it actually ended up being false. Well, I wouldn't care about what was written before that. The point is that it failed the tests, and so I'm no longer going to take it seriously. I'm approaching the God idea in the same way.
So what makes you think the idea of God has failed? Like what failed tests indicate?
Well, I think that historically God was provided as an explanation for 100 different things, none of which require a God to explain them anymore. Like we just know the world better. We can explain how things work more effectively now than we could, in the past. And so it's not a useful explanation. That coupled with, the probably thousands of times that people have predicted facts about the future based off of the God that they believe in, and then those facts don't come true. That's also evidence against those gods. So like what I'm talking about is like end of world predictions. The world's going to end in 2012, for example. Well, people have different conceptions of gods, right? Depending
so what if we had like a God? So obviously I'm going to be a bit biased here. What if you have a God that hasn't said anything false? So Muslims.
Give me an example.
Like Allah. Yeah, Allah. The Islamic God.
So what has Allah said? Has Allah said anything?
Yeah, you should go through like the Prophet. Yeah, like okay, well, before we dive into that,
because
would you agree
Quran
that
was dictated by Gabriel, correct?
Actually, don't really. I don't.
Yeah,
I know it was like 1400 years ago.
So Gabriel came down and Gabriel dictated to Muhammad the Quran. So God does not speak to Muhammad, at least as far as I know. But
the Quran is revelation of God. Well, okay, hold on. Before we dive
so
into
it's indirect. So in that sense, I would say that yes, Gabriel. If Gabriel exists and Gabriel is representing God, then yes, it would be the case that there is at least one false thing in the Quran.
Okay, what's false in the Quran?
That the moon was split in two.
How do you know that's false?
Because if it were true, we would expect the. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Wait, I think that's interesting. You're saying it's false. There's actually like no okay, yeah, actually I'm curious to hear.
Yeah. So we have good reason to think it's false because and I've spoken with an ex-Muslim about this who happens to know the Quran pretty well. Apparently, the location of the moon was between two mountains, which was to the east, which means that the moon would have been over the east of would be east. The moon would be directly overhead east of the Middle East, east of Arabia, somewhere in Arabia. And there's a place that is east of the Middle East called China. China's famous.
It's improbable.
No. China's famous for having extraordinarily detailed astronomical records going back far before Muhammad was ever born. And at the time that it would have been observed, the Chinese would have been looking at the sky, and they detailed far.
Would have?
Yes.
That's just a speculation there.
No, the Chinese had dedicated astronomers that did this every day.
So
they had court astronomers. And so what I'm saying is that the fact that we have no record from the Chinese is very strong evidence that it never happened.
Well, that's still like just a speculation. I definitely understand you there, but that's not like, I wouldn't say that's.
It's evidence. It's not proof, but it's evidence.
Yeah, it's evidence. So the same thing can be said for gravity with the coin flip as well.
Wait a minute.
Very low. It's very improbable. I believe in miracles, right? But your argument is basically there's strong evidence implying it's a low probability chance. But then I'm asking the same question here with like gravity. How do we know that it's not a low gravity chance? Low probable chance. Same with like a coin flip.
Wait, you keep going back and forth between the coin flip and gravity. There is the evidence that we have. That, like if there was evidence that indicated that gravity existing was very low probability, then we would have good reason to reject the existence of gravity, or reject whatever hypothesis was talking about it, right? That's how we analyze ideas, form beliefs, correct misunderstandings as we evaluate how likely is the explanation, or how likely is this thing to have happened given the evidence that we have. And so you're right. If all of the evidence said that gravity is very unlikely, then I wouldn't believe in gravity. I wouldn't believe, like, you know, there'd be something holding us down, but I wouldn't believe that it was like space-time curving or whatever it is, right? Similarly, when we have you know, good reason or evidence to think that the moon splitting didn't happen, then I have reason to think that it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, I think it's still a probability thing, because the evidence doesn't, it just, I would answer it decreases the probability of it being true.
Right?
But how does the lack of evidence for gravity decrease the probability of it being?
What lack of evidence for gravity?
No, I'm saying lack of, what's it called? Like, lack of evidence against gravity. Are you saying that increases the probability of it being, like, true? Or like
The lack of evidence
fact that you're gonna
against
be
something, or the presence of evidence for something, both of these increase the probability. If you have the lack of evidence for something, or you have the presence of evidence against something, that decreases the probability of the thing being true. So we have tons of evidence that is in favor of gravity. We have, as far as I can tell, very little to no evidence against gravity. So that increases the probability of gravity being real.
Yeah, that's fair
Similarly,
to say. So similar
for the moon,
Islam, I would argue that there's
we
a lot
have
of
no
evidence
evidence that the moon was split in two, but we have a lack of evidence that it was. So that should decrease your credence. That should decrease the probability of that being viewed as true.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I still wouldn't say that's, well, that just
I never said it's proof.
probability doesn't make. Yeah,
but
of course.
it is pretty compelling evidence, because the Chinese are famously good astronomical recorders. They're reliable in this respect.
I still wouldn't say that's like that's a fair point, but I think just the decreased probability of a event happening, I wouldn't say that necessarily disproves it.
I never said it necessarily disproves it, but you were
trying
exactly. Right, you were trying to ask, well,
exactly.
What's the thing that decreases your probability in the Quran? And I just gave you the example.
Okay, so the Chinese were astronomical. Is there like any paper on this?
Any paper on the Chinese historical records? You
Yeah,
can
like
go read you can go read their records. They exist. They're preserved.
The records of them, like the like what they.
Yeah, they're astronomical records. Yeah, you can go read them. They all exist.
But they're like written down statements.
Yeah.
Okay, but why should we believe the written down statements of them, but not the written down statements?
Right. So we can verify scientifically that their statements correspond almost always to something that actually happened. And so the question is did they miss anything? That's an open possibility. But when they record, an eclipse happened on the 14th day of spring in the 7th year of the reign of Emperor whatever, which is the kind of thing that they record, we can just go run the math and go and check and see that, oh yeah, there was actually an eclipse there over this part of China on this day, and they were right. And when we go, there was actually a really famous example. There was a supernova that happened something like 1,000 years ago. And this was recorded in Chinese astronomical texts, that a new star appeared for a few weeks. And we can go out and we can look in the sky and we can see the remnants of that supernova. And we can figure out how old that supernova is by how much it's expanded. And
okay, yeah, can we do the same for Islam though?
No.
So I understand what you're saying here. But here's two objections I have. Number one, we do have evidence for these other claims. We don't have evidence that what they said about the moon is true. What you're basing that off is that they were right about other things. That means that they should be right about this thing. Well, what about in Islam? Well, we have tons of claims that, or predictions or whatever you want to say, that were actually true, that have already happened, or like before they knew it.
What?
Well, there's a lot actually. I'm thinking specifically of like men imitating women. That's such a random example, but this is something that I'm pretty sure.
That was the thing that was happening before, so it's not really a prediction.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So what about like fetuses, the knowledge of fetuses?
So I've spoken with physicians, like actual doctors, and they have explained to me that the description. So there's kind of two things happening here. One, the description of fetal development in the Quran is wrong. So it's just straight up wrong. It's not accurate. And two, it's almost a direct copy of. There's a famous Greek physician whose name starts with H. Is it Hippocrates? Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's Galen. It's almost an exact copy of Galen's understanding of embryology. And so It's not. Even if it were correct, it's not a revelation because it's almost a direct copy of an ancient Greek physician, and B, it's not even right.
Okay, so basically, well, yeah. Let me ask you the question because I'm actually not that well versed into like what the Islam actually like the revelations. But let me just ask, like, if I were to bring up like a list of like revelations that were actually accurate and correct, and they were, don't want to say the only ones, but I want to say like they thought of them themselves, or like God, or in my theory, like God thought of this, he proposed it, or like it's written down, recorded in hadiths or the Quran, and then later on ended up being true. Would this be something that would make you believe in God?
It would definitely raise my credence. So the criteria would need to be A, that the thing that's being claimed is not present elsewhere in earlier literature, or was not a common belief at the time, that this is something that that Muhammad couldn't have gotten from talking with people, and B, it has to actually be true and non-vague, right?
Wait, let me write this down because I do want to come back. So number one,
so it has to be representative. It has to be an idea or a fact that is not, or that didn't exist prior to Muhammad writing it down, meaning that you can't find a culture that had basically the same or very, very similar ideas prior to that. Because
and the number two, so number one, an idea, fact that didn't exist prior to Muhammad writing it down.
And then the second thing is that it has to be correct, right? It has to actually be true. And then the third thing is that it has to be non-vague. So and why I say it has to be non-vague is because if Muhammad said there will be a war eventually, okay, anybody could say that doesn't require divine inspiration, right? So you understand why these criteria are there.
Okay, yeah, I would love to come back with like a list of that then.
Okay,
and then
we can go over them.
Because you did justify your belief in the Chinese statements because they actually did have,
because they're reliable.
Those criteria. So believe that.
So the Chinese statements are reliable because they meet those criteria. I mean, they weren't making predictions; they were making observations, but it's similar. They are correct, as in we can backtrack the calculations and verify. We can do the math basically and figure out when there were eclipses and all these kinds of things. They were accurate, so they give specific days, specific years, and because they were making observations, kind of the first one isn't relevant. We're not expecting that they were divinely inspired. They were just observing this. But they are accurate and specific is the point. So they meet those criteria. If you're going to say that there is a divinely inspired idea, then then it must also be the case that they didn't get it from somewhere else besides the divine. So it has to have been new. That's what, because we're not claiming that the Chinese were divinely getting their information from, gods instead of just looking at the sky. It's not required that it has to be new. Does that make sense?
That's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think about general what about how do I say this? Things that were improbable. So what if I present a idea that Muhammad, he was 1400 years ago, he couldn't even read Arabic, the Quran was created in Arabic, and boom, now we have 2 billion people and Arab, you get the whole idea here. I'm saying
I don't think that's improbable. I don't think it's improbable at all. It's not improbable that a warlord was able to spread a cult of personality. That's not improbable at all. Yeah, I mean,
what do you mean
Muhammad was a warlord.
That he what does that mean? That he started a lot of wars?
That he had an army and he went around conquering people. Right? That was and then after he died, his successors did the same. There's a reason why Islam spread to all of North Africa, all of the Middle East, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but the probability of that happening in the first place.
The probability
do you think how many other ideas do you think have attempted to do that and then succeeded to the scale?
Look, so the question is not how many other ideas have succeeded to the scale. The question is how frequently are warlords successful? And if we look throughout history, every few hundred years someone pops up and does a whole bunch of conquering. Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Muhammad. This happens pretty regularly in human history. it happened to be that as far as Muhammad was concerned, he not only was conquering, he was also imposing a cult of personality.
Okay, that's fair. So your lack of belief basically is because of those three things. You would need to see more revelations, or is there like any other, like, is there a reason like you explicitly
if you
don't
could give,
believe
like,
in? Or...
So I think that it's probably the case that even if God is real, it's probably not possible that it's the God as described by the Quran, because the God as described by the Quran probably has some logical problems, depending on how you view time, depending on whether or not you think that God is, has these properties of mercy and justice, which I believe are two separate names.
There's definitely no logical problem.
I mean, so you say, but is one of God's names mercy, or the merciful one?
Huh?
Is one of God's names the merciful one, and is another one of God's names the just one?
Yes.
Okay, well, you can't be both merciful and just. Those are mutually contradictory notions.
In what way?
Mercy is, or justice is, giving people what they deserve. Mercy is giving people a less severe punishment than what they deserve. You can't be both merciful and just at the same time in the same way.
What if they deserve mercy?
By definition, nobody deserves mercy.
By what?
Because
is it a logical contradiction to deserve mercy?
Yes. Mercy, by definition, is getting more than you deserve, or perhaps getting a more generous offer than you deserve. That's what mercy is.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's getting less, or it's getting punished less than you deserve, right? Whereas justice is getting exactly what you deserve. So yeah, there's a direct logical contradiction between being merciful and just in the same way.
Well, not in this. Well, you can be both, can't you? Like, what if I'm merciful to you and then just to another person?
Right. Yeah. But then you're not all merciful and all just. Is the point?
Yeah,
you're like you're like a little merciful and like a little just, or you're like merciful in some scenarios and just in other scenarios. But you're not like the maximal or like the most just or the most merciful, right? Like.
Yeah, I'll have to look into what. I don't know the actual stance on that, but I can like almost guarantee that.
Like it is
possible. Contradiction. I think you just misinterpreted.
It is possible for a being to be like, if the God that you believe in is not maximally just, or is not maximally merciful, then it is possible for something to be more just, or for something to be more merciful.
Yeah, can you look? I'm gonna go on Google. Maybe you can, but I'm pretty sure. So search, is Allah all merciful and all just?
Okay.
Because I actually don't know.
And all just.
I'm pretty sure, even if it says yes, it's gonna sound biased, but I'd have to look at like the like the Arabic, like what they actually use.
Yes, in Islamic belief, Allah is both all merciful and all just. And it says these two traits work together in a complete and balanced way. I think that they can't work together in a complete and balanced way, and it kind of just elaborates.
Yeah, I think if you look at the explanation, that they could explain how. Yeah, I don't think like such an obvious like logical. I would like immediately.
Yeah, I think probably what we're gonna find is like cope. But
so?
I think so. I like all merciful means that there is no situation in which you're not merciful, right?
Depends on the like Arabic word for it. So I'd have to look into that. I doubt there would be like some logical contradiction.
Well,
I have like a percent, and I know there's other people that want.
So Christians think that there's no logical contradiction in their God either, but they think that the number 3 is the same as the number 1. So I don't know, man. I don't think that having a logical contradiction is preventing anybody from believing.
Okay, I don't think you're that well versed into their actual beliefs, because there is like actual like logical explanation for it. Whether there is like,
no logical explanation for the Trinity stuff. No.
Pretty sure there is.
You have 3 persons, but one God.
Yeah,
each person
I can guarantee
is God.
there is.
I mean, so again, it's cope.
But you think it's, of course. Okay, that's I don't. Yeah, this is where like keep in mind I'm Muslim, so I'm obviously against Christians, but there like is a genuine like I've
look,
talked to them.
They will try to give you an absolutely. They will try to give you an explanation. But look, I've talked to lots of Christians who have tried to defend the Trinity. I can tell you, every single time they try to defend the Trinity, it just ends up being cope. It's just like, oh well, you can't count God that way. God is just different. It just doesn't work for God.
Yeah, I would agree with you though. Yeah, I would agree with you. Like,
and it's going to be the same thing here. It's going to be the same thing here. Oh well, when we say that God is all merciful, we don't mean that God is merciful in every possible situation. We mean something else, and it's just cope, right? It's either God is either all merciful, meaning that God is merciful in every situation in the maximal way, or not. So anyway, Abdi, I am gonna let you go because you've been on for a while, but thank you for being here. I do appreciate you.
Yeah,
and,
I have to go
we'll
as
talk
well.
Again.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
He was good faith. I could put him on the YouTube channel, but I'm not going to because he deserves a chance to learn. He was not cringe. Let's talk to Ash on the Discord. Ash, how's it going? You were on the live stream.
Planner stages, it shows you're not qualified to make arguments about that sort of thing.
Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. What'd you say?
Oh shoot! Am I live?
Yeah, you're live.
All right. Fuck it.
So what am I not
who
qualified to make arguments about?
I didn't even know that. You just kind of brought me on. I was talking to another person
Oh, well,
recently
you were
about
in the
something,
guest
and
waiting area. You were waiting to presumably be pulled up, right?
yeah, I just didn't realize it would be like. That's okay. You know what?
Look, if you want to go back and talk to that person, that's fine. I can bring up another guest. That's fine.
No. Okay, let's start over. Let's start over.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
I noticed that you ask these gauging questions like, what is the age of someone?
Yeah,
right?
because there's a minimum age to talk to somebody on TikTok for them to be on a live stream.
Oh, okay. Do you ask the W-2 question to see if they're like employed? Or
No,
is
to
that
see
just
if
like
they're
an age?
to see if they know what one is, because 15-year-olds usually don't know what a W-2 is. 25-year-olds usually do.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm 22 and I didn't really have a job for very long. I just went back to being on disability.
It's fine. I believe you, Ash. I only ask age questions when it seems sus. You're fine. So, Ash, do you believe in God?
Are you gonna kick me if I tell you I'm agnostic?
Yeah, I will.
Well, I'm not.
I don't believe you, Ash.
Well, I don't believe.
So then what? How could you convince me to believe if you don't believe?
I believe you believe sometimes.
Okay.
You want to know how I know that?
All right, let's talk to Kylo KG. I feel like I've spoken with Kylo before. Poor Ash. Ash was completely caught off guard. Oh, you know what? I need to read super chats, and I kind of completely forgot, but I will promise I will read them after this guest. Kylo, how's it going?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
All right. Yeah, so I'm going to make this quick and easy.
Yep,
I'm going to give
please.
you an argument for God.
Yep.
If we take God to be a necessary being, all-knowing, all-powerful, what it means to be all-knowing is for every true proposition, you ground it. What it means to be all-powerful
Sorry,
is
can you repeat that?
can
So what it means to be all-knowing is that for every true proposition, you ground it? What is...
Correct, though. Yep.
So all-knowing does not mean that you know all true propositions?
No, it just means that you ground all true propositions.
So why is it called all-knowing?
Well, that's just what's being said. When you say why is it called all-knowing,
like it just seems like you're giving like a. It seems like you're giving kind of like a idiosyncratic definition of the word.
It's idiosyncratic is why I elucidated on the definitions. So when I give the argument, when I give the argument, it's not like okay,
sure.
And then all powerful, you have the capacity to actualize any logical possibility. The standard account, of course. Okay, perfect. And then the being's necessary. Do you believe in a necessary being with those two omni properties?
Grounding all possible true propositions and the ability to actualize.
And the referent is necessary?
No. So in your view, do you think that actualization is the kind of thing that requires intention?
Intention? What's being said by intention, to be clear?
As in that there is like perhaps a will that is part of the will is to see a thing be done, and then the thing is done by doing the actualization.
Well, no, it doesn't commit the being to having a will. It just commits.
Does it commit the being to having a mind?
It depends on what you take a mind to be in.
A thing with mental states.
A thing with mental states. Well, I mean, look, I don't know if I want to take a monistic account right now, but not necessarily. The argument is just concluding a necessary being with
Okay,
those
look,
properties.
so I think I think that it's like epistemically possible that there is some feature of reality, you can call it whatever you want, some feature of reality that accounts for why logically possible things, or actually, you know what? No, I won't necessarily agree with that, because I don't think that all logically possible things do happen or can happen in like a physical or metaphysical sense.
So you deny necessary being, to be clear?
No, I deny the all-powerful part of a necessary being. I think it's possible that you could have a some sort of necessary component of reality that is in some sense like the foundation for, true propositions. I think that that's possible, like in an epistemic way, not in like a modal sense. But I don't see why I would then think that thing should also be all-powerful. Now, like, maybe it's epistemically possible, like maybe you could convince me that that's the case. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not clear to me that that's like a required piece in order to be both necessary and grounding for true propositions.
Well, let's be clear. Are you signing off on there being a necessary being?
On there being a necessary component of reality. If by being you just mean a thing that exists, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you do believe in there. Okay. Huh. And then you're just
so to be clear, I'm saying that it's like epistemically possible.
I'm saying it's necessarily true. I'm saying it is the case.
I'm saying that, like, oh, you could be right. Maybe that's the case. I'm not
do you
making
believe
a
in
claim.
that?
No, I'm pretty agnostic about it, to be honest.
I have a proof for it, to be clear.
That there's a necessary thing? Sure.
That there, of course, yeah. It's the KG ontological argument.
Sure.
So, premise 1, you want to type this out?
Yep, I'm typing it out. Don't worry.
Okay. If
Actually,
no
I can
necessary.
pull it up. Let me pull it up for you. Just that way then we can all see it together.
A group project. That's beautiful.
Exactly. Well, I don't want people to think I'm misrepresenting you. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. If no necessary being is logically possible.
If no necessary being is logically possible.
And if possibly there existed a contingency.
And if possibly there exists a contingency, yeah.
Yeah, then said contingency could not have an external explanation.
Could not have an external explanation. Yep.
Premise 2. A possible contingency could have an external explanation.
Could have an external explanation.
Yep.
Yep.
And then C1, a necessary being is possible.
Necessary being is possible. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Well, we can talk about the premises in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah. P3, a necessary being is either necessary or impossible. C2, a necessary being is necessary. Okay.
Okay, so let's just double check this, make sure that it's valid, right? I'm sure that you've checked it, but we'll do it as an exercise. So you say if no necessary being is logically possible, and if, so we can say if, I'm just gonna rewrite this, if no necessary being, I'm gonna put some symbols here just so then we can separate things, and if possibly there exists a contingency, then we want something like a possibly existing contingency has no external explanation. Is this a correct rendering? So you agree with this rendering, right?
Can you recapitulate P1 under your rendition?
Can you not see it?
Oh, no, I can't. Can you say it audibly?
Yeah. So all I did was I just kind of put brackets and things. So I have if no necessary being is logically possible and possibly there exists a contingency, then a possibly existing contingency has no external explanation.
Couldn't have one, but yeah, that works. Yep.
So when you say couldn't, are you making a modal claim that it necessarily does not have one?
Yeah.
Okay. A possibly existing contingency necessarily does not have an external explanation. And then P2, we have a possible contingency could have. We say possible contingency. When we say could have, you mean something like it is possible that. It is possible that a possible contingency has an external explanation. And then you from your conclusion. So let's see if this logically follows. So C1. So this is not even valid, right?
It's a
It's not
what did
even
you just
valid.
tell me?
Like, it's not even valid.
want the
Like,
inference
doesn't-
rule? Are you
No,
okay?
no. I mean, you missed the disjunct. So
It's
what C1
modus
implies?
tollens with a double negation, by the way.
So what
I
C1
can
implies
I can show you the
is that-
proof.
So what I know that you're doing modus tollens here. So P2 is the negation of the consequent of P1, but P1 is a conjunct. So the negation of P1, if you want to use modus tollens, is the negation of the first part of the conjunct of P1 or the negation of the second part of the conjunct of
It's
P1.
the proposition simpliciter. What are you saying?
So the what is it? The antecedent is a conjunct in P1. So you have to negate both of the elements of the conjunct and then put a disjunct between them.
You're
right?
negating
So
the proposition simpliciter.
So the conclusion, if we're following modus tollens, the conclusion is
It's
a
modus
necessary
tollens-
being
not
is
listening.
possible or possibly.
Didn't I just tell you it's modus tollens
there
with
does
a
not
double
exist
negation?
a contingency.
Hello?
So do you agree that the correct version of the conclusion should be a necessary being is possible or possibly, or I guess we should or yeah. So we want or not.
Hello?
Not possibly there exists a contingency.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, my mic cut out. It's modus tollens with a double negation. What are you saying?
So my point is if you're just from P1 and P2, like you could add some extra steps in here and then you could get to validity, but directly from P1 and P2, if you're just directly applying modus tollens, then you can end up with a conclusion that has
It's modus
that's a disjunct.
tollens with a double negation. Are you not listening?
I'm listening. So
Okay, you can plug. By the way, I can show you the proof.
How is double negation getting you to the falseness of the negation of the second part of the conjunct?
Yeah, because okay, so what's being said here is, look, if it was impossible, you couldn't have X, but it's not impossible, so you can have X.
Yeah, but X is a conjunct here. It's not just a simple proposition.
What do you think? No, it is. We're taking it to be the proposition simpliciter. I can give you the proof tree, by the way.
So the negation of the negation of the
you want me to show you the proof tree?
Is the negation of So you could probably add an additional premise here to make this valid. You could say that
I can just show you the proof tree if you're
you
confused.
You could say that not possibly there exists a contingency is false. Then it would follow that a necessary being is possible.
I could just show you the proof tree. I don't know what you're saying.
So okay, you can see the background behind me, right? Like you can look at your phone.
Yep.
Okay, so what is wrong with C1 here?
So not P and Q entails not R. Q and R, therefore P.
I can't see what you're showing me. It's
Okay,
blurry.
well I'm reading you the proof tree. So you take the conjunct not P and Q, and that entails not R.
Wait,
Then
so
P2
so it's not P and Q or not P and Q? It's hard to see.
Yeah, not P and Q.
Where are the parentheses?
I mean, it's there. The parentheses are there. I know you can't see, but they're there.
So do the parentheses encapsulate P and Q?
Yep.
Okay, so you have not, and I'll just write this down so everybody can see it. So you have not P and Q, and then you have entails.
Well,
what?
you have not
Entails
P.
are?
You have not P. No, it's just not P. It's just look. Put the negation symbol before the P.
Okay.
Put the not. Yep.
So you want this?
There you go. Entails not R.
Okay.
P2. Q and R.
Oh.
There.
I don't think that P2 was saying Q and R. It sounded like P2 was just saying R.
No, of course not. That's what I was trying to get you to understand.
Well, so at least as rendered here, it seems like you're just saying that
There's
negation
possibly
of
a contingency in it.
the negation of the consequent is all you're saying in P2.
Premise 2 is saying there's possibly a contingency and it possibly has an external explanation.
Oh, that's not what you said.
That's what I said. What?
You want to replay it?
It doesn't matter.
Let's replay it.
Okay.
Okay. And I could be wrong here. Oh,
Agree-
we'll just replay it and we can just double check. Okay, so here's the part where you're going over P2.
explanation.
Yep.
Premise 2, a possible contingency could have an external explanation.
So you didn't say that there exists a possible contingency. You just said a possible contingency
What?
could have an external explanation.
I didn't say there. What did you say?
Not have an external explanation. Let's listen to it again.
Premise 2. A possible contingency could have an external explanation. A possible contingency could have an external explanation.
Yeah.
Right. So there's possibly a
doesn't-
contingency. There's possibly a contingency with an external explanation. What are you saying?
No, that's no. It doesn't follow that that there exists such a possible contingency.
Huh? Wait. By the way, when you say possible, the modal verb there is just a logical modality. So we're saying there's possibly a contingency with an external explanation. What's not clear there?
Look, so correctly interpreted, what you're saying is that if there exists a possible contingency, then that possible contingency has an external explanation.
First of all, no, it's just saying possibly there is a contingency with an external explanation. There is a possible contingency, and it could have an external explanation.
Okay,
that's
so
what's being said.
I mean, if that's what you meant, fine. It's certainly not what you said, but we can render it that way. So you want to say,
I think that that's
there exists.
That's neither.
So your P2 is there exists a possible contingency.
There is a possible contingency, and it could have an external explanation.
A possible contingency, possibly. Is that what you want? Do you want a possible contingency or any existent?
There is a possible contingency, and it could have an external explanation.
So you want there exists a possible contingency, and
why do you keep saying there exists? I'm just saying there is a possible contingency.
That's what there is means.
When you say exists, some might take that to embed. Some might take that to embed on TikTok. So
I'm just using formal mathematical language.
As long as exists is not or ontically committing, then that's fine.
No, I'm not. No. Although I don't know what it would mean for there to be a possible contingency if it doesn't have if the contingency never has any ontology. But we can continue.
That's not.
So any existent. So your claim is and then the point is that some, maybe not any, some existent possible contingency possibly has an external explanation. Is that the claim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we can evaluate. I think that this probably does then, as expressed, this probably does imply the original C1 that you wanted. So let me just look at it again for a second. So we have a possibly existing contingency necessarily does not have an external explanation. Okay, so then yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Possibly there exists a contingency. By possibly there exists a contingency, that you mean the same thing as in some non-ontic sense there exists a possible contingency.
Yeah, there's just no contradiction.
Okay, yeah. Then that's fine. Then C1 does follow. You're good. Okay, so then we have a necessary being is possible. P3, a necessary being is either necessary or impossible. And then conclusion, a necessary being is necessary. Okay, so why should I? Okay, so I agree. Valid as written, right?
Perfect.
So, yeah, indeed, perfect. So now, what's the justification for these premises?
Okay, which premise would you like a justification for? We can go from the top. Okay, let's go from the top to the bottom. So, the whole argument's analytic, but P1, let me just be clear on some definitions first. So, an external explanation is the type of explanation where the explanans and the explanandum are of distinct modal classes. Is that clear?
Distinct. It's not clear what it means for them to be of distinct modal classes.
Yeah, that
I'm
means
interpreting modal classes. Well, so if you could clarify. I mean, I understand that they should be distinct kinds of things, but that's perhaps too loose, and that's what you were trying to clarify. So is that roughly what you mean?
Well, we're saying when we inquire on their mode of existence indexed to the modal class, which is just contingency and necessity, you want to say it's dichotomous. Some referent X is either contingent or necessary.
Sure. Or impossible, sure, but yeah.
Oh, but then it can't be a thing.
Sure.
So for anything X.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for anything that exists, sure, in a possible world. I'm on board.
Okay. And now what's being said here is, look, if we eliminate the necessity talk and external explanations don't allow for the explanans and the explanandum to be of the same modal class, then you can't get a contingent thing externally explaining another contingent thing. So then it just trivially follows that if we eliminate a necessity, a contingency couldn't have an external explanation.
It's not clear to me why a contingent thing can't explain another contingent thing.
Once again, that's true in virtue of the definitions of what an external explanation is.
Oh, okay. So all you're saying is you're just defining an external explanation as some essentially like if there's an external explanation for a contingent thing, then you're just saying that whatever that explanation is, it has to be necessary.
Yeah, because the reason why is because external explanations are the type of explanations where the explanans and the explanandum are of distinct modal classes.
Is this just like a definition that you're offering for an external explanation?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's analytically true. Okay. Do you agree with premise one?
It's just a definition, right?
Do you agree? Excuse me. Do you agree with premise one?
So let me read through it now that I know what you mean by external explanation. So if no necessary being is logically possible, and possibly there exists a contingency, and possibly then a possibly existing contingency, it still doesn't. Maybe I'm just not tracking, but it still doesn't see. I still don't see how the the antecedent implies the consequent.
Okay, so do you think that's
They just seem unrelated.
Do you think a contingency could externally explain another contingency?
A contingency? Oh, so given your definition, perhaps not, right?
Okay, perfect. So then,
yeah,
that's all premise one is saying.
Okay, so all you're saying is that a contingency. Okay, so you're saying that a contingency can't be explained by another contingency.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also saying that so it does not so the consequent is a possibly existing contingency necessarily does not have an external explanation. So wait. There's
a stipulation. You missed something. Don't straw man.
Well, you didn't write it, so or you didn't.
Yes,
say
I did.
So.
The stipulation in premise one is if a necessary thing wasn't possible. So you can't forget that stipulation.
I was just reading the antecedent. Right.
Okay, but the antecedent follows given the stipulation.
No, I know. I'm just trying to make sure it's parsed out properly. So when you say a possibly existing contingency necessarily has some property, are you restricting you're saying that it necessarily does not have an external explanation? This is a it sounds like what you're doing is you could say that the has an external explanation is a predicate of perhaps. I don't know what you're using property talk for. You're using more ontically committing talk. I don't know what you're saying. It has the property.
So
then what do you mean by it necessarily does not have an external explanation?
Because
are you making a modal statement here?
I'm saying it's impossible given there's a contradiction if affirmed.
Okay, so and impossible again, is this a modal statement?
Yeah, impossible under a logical modality. So there's a proposition as direct negation and held into view.
Okay, so you're saying that in all worlds where let's take the existing contingency, or let's take a contingency.
We're talking about a possible.
Existing.
We're not even saying.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
So we're talking about a contingency, and we're going to go look at the subset of all of the possible worlds where that contingency is, say, true, or where that contingency holds, right? So there's some subset of the all of the possible worlds, and that subset is going to, or subclass, whatever, is going to contain a contingency, is going to contain this contingency where that contingency obtains. And then when we say necessarily does not have an external explanation, what we're really saying is among that subset where that contingency holds, there is no element of that subset where it has an external explanation. Is that what you're saying?
And that's in virtue of what?
I'm just trying to understand exactly what you're saying about the consequent here.
So far, it's not bad, but you have to be clear.
I'm not questioning it. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what's being said. Being said.
Okay, good. So we're talking. So the scope of the scope of the necessity here is sort of a restricted necessity scope. It's not over all logical, not over all possible worlds, right?
It is over all possible worlds.
No, it's over all possible worlds in which this contingency is present.
Yeah, well, trivially, obviously.
Right. So I'm just clarifying here, right? I don't know why you're being like.
Okay.
I'm trying to be maximally charitable and just trying to like actually give you the time due to understand the argument. It seems like you're kind of being like aggressive. So cool it. Okay. Okay. So totally on board. Totally on board. I think I understand the antecedent here. And then we say if no necessary being is logically possible. So suppose that there isn't a necessary being. So there's no possible world in which there's a necessary being, meaning that that necessary being doesn't exist in this subset of possible worlds. And so the claim is that that necessary being can't be present in those worlds where the contingency holds to serve as an external explanation. Is that okay? Is that the claim? Is that P1? Okay, I think I'm on board with it. Let's hear P2.
Possibly there exists a contingency with an external explanation.
possible. Sorry, let me reread it really quick, and then I'll process what you said. There exists a possible contingency, and some existent possible contingency possibly has an external explanation. Okay, so let's break this down into the modal scope. So we're saying, okay, the first part's pretty easy. There exists a possible contingency, so there is going to be, among all possible worlds, some of those possible worlds will have some fact obtain, and that is the possible contingency, right? And it won't obtain in the other possible worlds. And some existent possible contingency possibly has an external explanation. So then you're saying, so take that possible contingency, so there's some subset of the possible worlds where that contingency obtains, or where that fact or that entity obtains, and then you're saying, well, among those possible worlds, that restricted subset of those possible worlds, there's a even smaller subset where the contingency has an explanation.
An external explanation.
Okay, what's the justification for this premise?
Yeah, that there is not impossible, and we can show propositions to be. I don't know if you have a metric of determining the possibility of propositions, but I use conjunctive truth table. So if in at least one evaluation a proposition is outputted as true, then the proposition is possible. So you can take the postulate P, there exists a possible contingency. The postulate Q said possible contingency has an external explanation. In at least one evaluation, the proposition is outputted as true.
So I think that it's perhaps plausible that that's a way of evaluating possibility here, logical possibility, of course. My contention's not the right word. My hesitance is that it seemed hesitance really. Like I'm trying to be good faith here. My hesitance is that it seems like I could just write down a necessary being is necessary, or so a necessary being is necessary, or a necessary being is we can't really use existence as a predicate here, but just bear with me and hopefully it'll make sense what my objection is here. So we could imagine that a necessary being is true, or a necessary being exists is true, or a necessary being exists is false. And so like
it has to be internally consistent. So
right. Hold on. I'm getting to that. I know exactly what your objection is, and I'm going to make my point. So if I just look at just that proposition and don't look anywhere else, then I'd say, well, it's possible that a necessary being doesn't exist. But the point of your argument is that you can provide additional premises, additional propositions, that when those which kind of extends your truth table, so that you can find that in fact, if all of those propositions hold true, then the falseness of the impossibility of a necessary being is no longer a valid part of the truth table. My point is
the objection.
Look, so my point is the possibility criterion that you're using seems like it's kind of be used in two different ways here. On the one hand, you're saying, well, if you can just write down the truth table and just see if it has a true or false, then both are possible. But you're not accounting for the possible inclusion, and I'm using possible colloquially here, the possible inclusion of additional propositions that would rule out one of those options. But that's what you're doing exactly in this argument. So you're using both things.
Hold on. Even if you were to do that, that holds no bearing to if it's possible.
The way that you justified possibility is to say that the truth table has both options. That
and at least one evaluation is outputted as true, and that both the postulates are internally consistent, so there's just no violation of the axioms.
Right. Yeah. No, but that's the claim. How do you know that? How do you know that both of these are internally consistent?
You can just run a no-seum inference.
Okay, so this is not deductive anymore.
I mean, that doesn't follow. I don't see the contradiction in no-seum inference as being deductive.
Well, no, I mean it sounds like what, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been a while out. It's been a while since I've actually talked about no-seums, but my understanding is that you're look, I can't see any possible contradiction here, so we can infer that it actually is fine. Is that roughly what you're saying?
Well, you're just saying in defense of the defeaters, it's permissible, and you can have these type of deductive arguments where the propositions are justified feasibly. So it's not clear on.
It seems like it seems like you can't deduce that this is the case if your only argument for it being the case is that I don't see how it's wrong.
Well, hold on. The premises are deductive, but they're justified feasibly is what's being said.
Okay, so is the justification merely that you don't see how it's unjustified?
Well, not that it's unjustified, that there is going to be a strict P and not P and tout. And you already agreed it's valid.
Well, so I agreed that the argument's valid, yeah. The question is whether or not the premises are true.
Or if it's valid, you agree it's deductive? What are you saying?
Look, so I'm asking for
Do
the
you,
justification
wait, do you
of
agree?
P2.
Do you agree if
Of
it's
course
valid,
it's
it's deductive?
The
So
question
what do you
is
mean
whether
it's no longer deductive?
So your justification for P2.
Mm-hmm.
You're just so look. If you have an argument, typically you want to defend the premises in that argument, and the way that you can kind of expand your argument is by adding in more propositions that make the
I know what
premises
sub-arguments
conclusions.
are.
Right.
I know
and
what
so
sub-arguments
if your sub argument doesn't get you to a deductive conclusion of what your second premise is, then we couldn't say that, at least from first principles, that your argument is fully deductive anymore, because in order to conclude the second premise, you're making a non-deductive argument.
That doesn't follow. So the sub-argument can be non-deductive and the argument simpliciter be deductive?
That's fine. That's fine.
Right.
I was just using it in a different way. I was using it in a different way, and that's fine, but you understand what I mean, right?
But the point is that I have reasons to believe there is no contradiction given the inference, and that we can just plug it into the truth table.
There's no contradiction. There's no contradiction to believe. Sorry, repeat
do
that.
you have a contradiction?
This is your argument. You can't just say,
Yeah,
"Oh, well,
I know what
You can't just say,
I'm
"I don't
pressing
see,
you on your
I don't
burden
see how it's
rejoinder.
impossible."
What?
Look, all I'm saying. Look, it sounds like your argument is saying, "I don't see how it could be wrong. Therefore, I have a reason to think it's right."
What do you think a
is
no-seam inference is? I've already
It's
explicated
exactly
the inference.
that. It's exactly that.
It's saying no. It's saying, look, I'm licensed in affirming to view indispensable active defeaters. So it's just saying I'm defeasibly justified.
So what if I reject that?
What if you reject what?
The no-seam inference.
Okay, and so
I
didn't give an active.
I actually don't think that you're justified in believing a
and
proposition
what do you
if
take?
there's no
What do you take?
contradictions.
Let's be clear. Are we equivocating on justification? What do you take justification to
Probably
be?
not. I'm using it loosely.
What do you take it to be when you say you deny it? To be clear,
Are you asking what it means for me to reject a proposition?
I'm asking, what do you think it means to say you don't take the no-seam inference to be justifiable?
What I mean is that I don't buy it. Is that something that
Okay,
you don't understand?
That's not a defeater, by the way.
I'm not. Look, you're trying to convince me of something, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of an argument.
Yeah, we can just look. I mean, there's obviously motivations for the no-seam inference. We look at a large convergence of people in academia that endorse this type of view. That's obviously evidence in favor of the view. There's other plethora virtues you get from the inference. But when you say you reject the inference, I mean, that already puts you on the burden of rejoinder. So you merely being skeptical are not attack relations. And a bunch of questions are not even defeaters. But yeah, I've given you motivations for the no-seam inference.
Sorry,
and we do conception.
So the motivation is a bunch of philosophers accept it? Is that the claim?
Yeah, well, it's ideologically parsimonious. Yeah, there's a large convergence case on people in academia that endorse the view. Sure, that's evidence in favor of the view. Things of that nature. But yeah.
Okay, but the claim is not here that there's some
tactic.
I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing this. I'm trying to be maximally charitable to try to understand the argument, and I'm trying to give you an honest critique here. If that's not what you're looking for,
I don't see any critiques. No, that's fine. But
I've hardly even made any because I'm trying to understand your justification for these premises.
Okay.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to summarize what you said. So, the justification for P2 is something like, well, it's not obviously logically contradictory, and in the absence of a logical contradiction from these two pieces of conjunct, we have reason to infer that there isn't a contradiction there. This is the kind of inference that is often used in philosophical academia, and so it's at least plausible here. Is that roughly the point?
Yeah.
Okay. So your rough point is that it's at least plausible that P2 is true.
Well, we're saying we're justified in believing it's true, which is all that's needed, to be honest.
So you're justified in believing that's true because the inference that you use is well substantiated by, or is present frequently in the philosophical literature. Okay.
Yeah, and if a concept is successful,
I'm just going to write that down really quick.
Convergence.
So I'm just going to summarize, and again, you might be picky about the words, but hopefully everybody can understand what I mean. We are justified in believing something is true, especially if it is, well, I shouldn't say especially, when it is substantiated or used frequently in the philosophical literature. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Now, Okay, so we'll grant that for the sake of argument. Totally happy to do that. And so then absolutely C1 a necessary being is possible. And so then you get to a necessary being is necessary. So on board.
Yeah.
So granting P2, I'm on board. So now what?
Okay, so we got through P2, C1 necessary beings possible.
P3 straightforward. It's just a definition. So I'm on board with C2.
Right.
Given P2.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got to there being a necessary being.
Mm-hmm. And I said that
Beautiful.
that's epistemically possible. Like I could be, I could be convinced of that. I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think that that's like, I don't see an obvious contradiction there.
Okay, beautiful. Now, now when we talk about the omniscience property, right? So for all true propositions, this being grounds those propositions. Now, this is a counterfactual dependence relation. So what's being said there is that you can't have true propositions if there is no necessary being, because for all possible worlds where there are true propositions, the necessary being exists. So for any world X, the necessary being will exist in X.
Sure.
Okay, you to sign off on that property.
That can you repeat it one more time?
The omniscience property. So
No,
God
the very
grounds-
last thing that you said.
Oh, for any world X, the necessary being exists in X.
For any world X, the necessary being exists. Well, that's trivially true.
Okay, perfect.
That's just what it
So
means to be
that is-
necessary, right?
Yeah, but we're talking about the grounding relation for all true propositions.
Okay, so now your claim for the all true. So yeah, repeat back the claim now that I've clarified what the last sentence that you said was. Go ahead.
For all true propositions, God grounds them. That's just to say they can obtain.
Okay, we can just write this down. And I'm just writing, like, don't worry, it's not going to be a formal representation. I'm just writing it down so I can keep track of everything you're saying. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so what are you saying?
For all true propositions, they're necessarily grounded in God.
Grounded in God? You mean you mean the necessary being that is omniscient?
That's what I take God to be.
Well, why don't we say they're necessarily grounded in the necessary, or in a necessary being, right? That's probably
But God
fair.
isn't merely just a necessary being. God is a necessary being which is all knowing.
Okay, well then so you're defining, well, hold on, but you're defining God as the necessary, as a being that grounds all true propositions, right? And also the omnipotent property and the necessity property, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so fine. Given your definition of God, then that's true. Fine.
Okay, so you sign off on omniscience.
No. I'm just writing down what your claim is, right?
Okay. So what do you want me to do now? You want me to like recapitulate the view for omniscience?
Well, okay. So, are you just asserting that this is like a? Are you just asserting that the? I guess what I'm trying to ask you to do is like, okay, so why should I think that they're necessarily grounded in one thing? Why should I think that they're necessarily grounded at all? Like these are important questions.
Yeah, okay. So remember, the grounding talk is just counterfactual dependence relation.
Yeah,
so we're
if
just
the
saying
thing doesn't exist, then the proposition, then the thing that it grounds doesn't exist.
You can't have a world where there are true propositions and there is just not this God. So
wait a minute, hold on. That doesn't seem to follow, unless you're just being a little bit imprecise.
What doesn't follow?
You can't have. So if you assume for all true propositions they're necessarily grounded in God, sure, then it follows that that there can't exist a world in which true propositions exist, but there's not a God. But the question is why should I think that that this first thing is true? For all true propositions, they're necessarily grounded in God.
Remember, what do I take grounding to be?
Well, you take it to be a counterfactual dependence relation.
What's being said there?
Look, so the contention is whether or not there exists an entity that does do the grounding. That's the contention, right?
So, okay. Yeah, you'd agree there can't be a possible world where there is a true proposition and God doesn't exist?
No, I wouldn't agree to that. Why would I agree to that?
You have to,
I don't
because you
think
signed
God
off
exists.
You signed off on God, bro. Obviously, we're using the term how I use it, but you already signed off on there being a necessary being. So
a necessary being isn't identical to God. You define God to be a necessary being that grounds all true propositions.
If you're just being idiosyncratic,
and I'm using your definition. A God in your definition is a necessary being that grounds all true propositions. That's the omniscience property. It has the omnipotence property, namely that it actualizes, or it can actualize, any logically possible thing, and it's necessary. I haven't granted that such a thing even exists. All I've granted is that a necessary being exists, and that's assuming that
this
P2
is the line of
is
reasoning
grounded, or granted rather.
So if n is necessary, then its existence is a part of every possible world. Therefore, there's simply being no possible world in which n fails to exist. Like there is
Sure,
no
that's
possible
trivially
world.
the case.
Okay, so if there is no and then if you want to say for every possible or every world where there is a truth that being necessary exists, then you can't have worlds where there are truths and not this necessary being.
This seems like a confused nature of grounding then. Or perhaps idiosyncratic nature of grounding.
I already defined it.
Yeah. So all you're saying is that like suppose that there's like a necessary potato, right? You would say that the necessary potato also grounds all true propositions, right? Even though it doesn't have any sort of like,
yeah, because
let's say
counterfact.
Yes, I shouldn't say causal relation, but it doesn't have any sort of logical relation between itself and the propositions.
It has a dependence relation, a counterfactual dependence relation, but it's not an entailment relation.
But my point is it's saying nothing, right? Like the
saying
point is there is no counterfactual to a necessary being existing, right? So you're saying, well, there is no possible world in which the true proposition holds, but the potato doesn't exist, because all that's saying is that there's no possible world in which the potato doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's devoid of content, right? It's devoid of content.
Agree?
If by grounding,
no, it's not. I'll tell you the content. Wait, I'll tell you how there's content.
There is no possible
world.
You're
steamrolling.
World where so I'm going to say that X grounds Y means there is no possible world where Y obtains without X obtaining. That's what you mean by grounding, right?
Yeah. Do you agree?
I think that's if you want to use that as your definition of grounding, that's fine. I just think that it's like meaningless and it doesn't really convey anything.
I deny that it has no semantic content. And if you want to take that route in the debate where you want to say
in the case where you have a necessary thing, it means nothing to say that the necessary thing grounds anything.
What are the necessary conditions to have semantic content?
Is that are you trying to run tag?
No, I'm not. But to be clear, what are the necessary conditions to have semantic content?
I don't know. Are you a linguist?
Look, you made a claim that has no semantic content. You just took
it means nothing. What I mean is that it means nothing to me.
What is it? What's needed for something to mean nothing?
What's needed for something? Well, typically would lack something. It would lack meaning of something.
Okay. And what's going to be the argument that what I said has no semantic content?
That it lacks semantic content.
Yeah, that's begging the question. I want a supplementary
No, it's not
argument.
No, it's actually analytic. That's what it means to have no semantic content.
It's analytic. I didn't ask you what it means. I'm asking what's the reason to believe that.
Okay, so then
my
it's not begging the
rendition
question.
of
It's just the first step of an argument. So what I'm conveying is that.
Do you have an argument that what I said has no semantic content?
I'll explain what I mean. What I mean is that if you say that X grounds Y, where X is a necessary thing, then the counterfactual is empty. It's empty is not the right word.
Are there reference embedded in the concept?
Are there reference embedded? I have no idea what that sentence means.
Yeah, so the referent is a necessary being, right? That's all. You would agree that when we talk about even when we talk about counterfactual dependence relation index to the necessary being,
I just want to clarify. Would you say that if there was a necessary potato?
Do you agree there's reference?
And maybe
you didn't answer that clarity question.
It wasn't. If you want to finish
this is yes or no. Do you believe that when we talk about counterfactual dependent relations, there are reference embedded in that concept? Yes or no?
There are reference embedded in the concept of counterfactual dependence relations. Do you want to let me finish? Want to not cut me off while I'm trying to clarify what you're asking?
It's just a binary question. Just a yes or no.
I'm not understanding what your question is. There are things that you're talking about. If by the things that you're talking about when you're talking about reference, if those are just things that you're talking about, yeah, sure, you're of course talking about
then there's semantic content. Content.
Okay, so if you want to nitpick my language there, I will say that it is not it doesn't meaningfully convey any useful fact about the world to me when you say that a necessary thing grounds anything.
Okay, once again, so you're signing off of that? Wait, are you saying it does have meaning now, to be clear?
It has linguistic meaning. It doesn't convey anything useful to me.
Perfect. So you're saying useful now. That's a whole different type of talk. That it's not really pertinent. It's not a defeater.
I can explain what I mean, and I can explain what I mean by just a clarifying question.
Would you say that if there existed, even a defeater?
Would you say maybe that's why I want an answer to this question? Would you say that if there existed a necessary potato, that necessary potato would be the grounding of all true propositions?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, I take that to be it's perhaps not a reductio, but it's pretty damn close.
It's definitely not a reductio because it's consistent internally. But so you sign
Can
off.
there be
You sign off on.
hold on? Can there be multiple necessary, or is there a contradiction in there being multiple necessary beings?
I'm quite on that kind of talk, and I don't see the relevance relation.
Well, it's relevant because I could just stipulate there's like a trillion necessary things, and then they all are grounding propositions. True propositions.
You'd have to give argument for that. But anyways,
Well,
even if I were to say,
I don't see the contradiction. So at least
even if I
I
were
have
to
reason
say-
to think that it's possible.
even if I was to say yes,
no
then
sea of inference.
you sign off on the
But yeah,
omniscience, correct?
Well, I signed off that a necessary being would be the ground of.
Yeah, that's what I take
yeah,
omniscience to be.
using
All
your
true propositions.
Yeah, sure. Using your definition of grounding.
So far we've gotten to a necessary being, and we've gotten to omniscience. Now, my last step.
we've gotten, to be clear, we've gotten to an idiosyncratic omniscience, but sure.
By the way, I told you my definition on the onset. I said to make sure later in the debate. I said to make sure later in the debate you don't try to use that as like some type of like.
I mean, it is idiosyncratic. You have to
running
agree to that.
tactic. I don't know why you have to agree to that. I made it clear on the onset. But
okay.
So I've
but it
gotten
is a
to a
personal
necessary
definition. It's not what people mean. But go ahead.
Well, I deny that. It's actually used in some literature, some private literature. But
Private
so I've got
literature?
yeah. But I've gotten to a necessary being, and I've gotten to omniscience. Now my last step is to get to omnipotence.
Yep.
So we're just saying this being can do anything logically possible, and that's obviously going to be true.
Can do? What does can do mean?
We're just saying, okay, well, can is a modal verb, logical possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Do is to bring about. So
sure, yeah. So
okay.
it could,
So we're just saying this
can bring about. So what does it mean for a necessary thing to bring something about?
Well, that's just to say to instantiate it. You can take it from its potentiality to its actuality.
Oh, why should I believe that there's any potentiality at all?
Oh my God. So you kind of already signed off on there being potential things on the onset, but you can just show there's potential. Yeah, when you talk about contingencies are necessarily possible.
Well, hold on. Possible and potential are not the same thing.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yeah. What do you think the relevant distinction is, to be clear?
So generally I understand, and maybe you're using potential in a different way. I generally understand potential to be talk about the way things can be at some point beyond now, as opposed to the way things are.
What do you think can be means?
I take it to be time-based. I take it to be time-based talk.
No, I deny that potentiality.
Okay, so then what do you mean? So what do you mean by potentiality?
I told you, it just means possible.
Okay, so you just mean, and we'll just clarify, you by potential equals possible. Okay, so go ahead, continue.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, this being is omnipotent. I'll just say this being can do anything logically possible. Can do just means that it's not impossible.
So omnipotent can do anything logically possible, which is equivalent to something like possibilities can be made present in the actual world, something like that. Can be made to obtain. Made to obtain in the actual world. Okay, so this is the claim. Or all possibilities can be made to obtain in the actual world. Is that the claim?
Yeah.
So you say that something is omnipotent if all possibilities can be made. If that thing. What's the relation between?
We want to make sure there's no contradiction, to be clear. But
no. I'm not saying that there is. No. So what's the relation? Like, what is the omnipotent thing doing? Like, what is the relation between the omnipotent thing, the alleged omnipotent thing, and the possibilities being made to obtain in the actual world? Like, what's actually going on here?
When you ask what's the relation, what are you inquiring on?
Like what's the I don't know, is this like a grounding relation? Is it like some sort of entailment? Is it like a causal relation? Like what is the omnipotent thing doing? Like it
doesn't have to do. That question's loaded. It presupposes that it's doing anything.
Well, you said that it can do anything logically possible. So you're talking about doing
there's a distinction. No. There's a distinction between. There's a distinction between can do X and are doing X. Is doing X and can do X are distinct, and
is doing X. So is doing X and can do X? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, those are distinct.
One is something that is happening. One is something that, you know, if you want to load it with temporal language, it might happen in the future. If you want to load it with modal language, then you might say that
it's just
it is being obtained elsewhere in some other possible
taking
world.
The latter.
Is that what you're saying?
We're not taking the former. We're taking the latter. We're not saying this being is necessarily doing X. We're just saying this being can do X, and X is just a possibility.
And so what is it? So can you elaborate on what it means to can for like a being to for like if the thing can do X. Can you elaborate on what that
Yeah,
means?
so I can give you an example. So you
Yeah.
can say possibly there's a leprechaun. If you're omnipotent, you can take a possible world W3 and make it just from possible that there's a leprechaun to there actually being a leprechaun, which is instantiating that world, so it can do anything logically possible. There's no contradiction in actualizing the possibility of there being a leprechaun.
Yeah, why should I think that one could why should I think that one could actualize in the actual world something that is merely logically possible?
Yeah, because there's no what it means to say you can do X is that there's just no contradiction. Once again, you think there's a contradiction?
But look, so
Well,
I mean,
to be clear, do you think there's a
contradictions,
contradiction?
right? Yeah, there's
Okay, there's a contradiction in a leprechaun. Wait, to be clear, what you're saying is there will be a contradiction and a leprechaun exists.
Yeah, I'll elaborate. So I'm
hold on. I just
elaborate.
want to be clear where we're at. Let me ask a question.
Yes. I mean, I'm
You
not
think-
specifically talking about leprechauns, but I can give you
Are
an
you
example.
precogging the question?
Yes, I am. I'm precogging the question. Yeah. They call me a physicist,
can
but
you
most people
repeat-
misspell it as a psychic. So look,
Can you
my point
repeat
is
the
that
question?
the physically possible is a subset of the logically possible. Presumably, it's a proper subset. So there are going to be things that are logically possible that cannot be physically instantiated in the world, in the actual world, because the only things that can exist in the actual world are physically possible.
But notice how I didn't commit it to the necessary actual world. I said
you did.
any
That's
possible
what it means.
world.
That's what it means to bring the leprechaun to the actual world.
No. So
What do
once
you mean,
again,
though? You just said that.
Let me be clear on what's being said. You're not tracking. So this being can instantiate leprechauns in World W3, where World W3 is not an actual world.
Okay,
you saying?
so when you're saying that it can instantiate, you don't mean it can instantiate in the actual world.
Well, I'm not saying that it can't. I'm saying I'm not committed to saying that.
Okay, so then what does it mean to do something? What does it mean to do something then?
Yeah.
Because
once
I'm
again,
pretty sure,
so
and I just want to play something back really quick. I just want to make sure I didn't remember you improperly. Okay.
This is how I didn't commit it.
Look, so I mean,
to be clear, do you think there's a
contradictions,
contradiction?
right? Why should I think that one could actualize in the actual world?
The upcon, which is 3, and omnipotent.
X. Can you elaborate on what that
Yeah,
means?
so
Okay, here we
I
go.
can give you an example. So you can say possibly there's a leprechaun. If you're omnipotent, you can take a possible world W3 and make it just from possible that there's a leprechaun to there actually being a leprechaun, which is instantiating that world.
So wait, you mean actually being a
Possible world
leprechaun in
W3?
that world, or is it
Yep.
actually? So what
Yep.
does it mean that?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Okay, so then let me clarify. When you say that in possible world W3 there's a leprechaun, what does it mean that there's actually a leprechaun in W3? That's not doing anything.
So what's being said there is, look, you can take a possible world where in the possible world there was no leprechaun, and then in that possible world there is a leprechaun instantiated. That's just to say, in the possible world, the stipulation of there being a leprechaun is now there given God's actuality.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that let's say that we're W1, we're the actual world, right? And so W2 is a possible world without a leprechaun, and W3 is a possible world with a leprechaun.
We can just leave it with W World 2. So at T1, W World 2 has no leprechaun.
Why are we introducing time here?
I'm trying to help you understand.
Okay,
so,
go ahead.
Time's not needed, but it's going to be useful for you. So at T1 in the possible world W2, there is no leprechaun. If God is omnipotent, he can actualize any possibility. So he can make it to be the case that at T2 in that possible world there is now a leprechaun.
Right. So when you say actualize, what do you mean?
We're just saying the possible world now embeds leprechauns. So you can say
so by actualize you don't mean make actual.
Well, it depends on what you mean by make actual. Because
I'm pretty sure, and I could be very wrong here, but I'm pretty sure make actual means make present in the actual world.
No, we're just saying when I say actual, I'm just saying it's now embedded in the possible world.
Okay, so we have another idiosyncratic definition, but fine.
Of what? Of
make
what?
Actual of make actual. You mean
no? I don't grant that all actualities are committed
in some possible world. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. All possibilities are in the actual world.
I shouldn't say make actual because that's ensure it is present in some possible world. That's what you mean by make actual?
Yeah.
Okay, so by make actual, you mean that... again, trying to just steel man you here. So by omnipotent, you mean that if there is a possibility in some third possible world, W3, and that possibility doesn't, say, currently obtain in W2, then what it means for God to be omnipotent is that God can make it so that the possibility that does obtain in W3 also obtains in W2. That's what you're saying?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
So does that now? Okay. So we run into the exact same issue with regards to W2 then, because
Which
W2 is
is?
going to have, so W2 will have, from the reference point of W2, there will be some physical things that are possible in W2 that are not possible in all logically possible worlds, and so it just doesn't
straw man,
follow.
by the way. Wait, so by the way, that means you're just stipulating in W2 that it's impossible. I deny that in all possible worlds it's going to be physically impossible.
I didn't make that. I didn't say that. What I'm
Okay,
saying
so
is
you
that,
wait. Do
is
you
that
agree?
for
I have a
any
clarity
possible
question.
world,
Let me ask you a
for
clarity
any
question. Do
possible
you
world,
I have a
there
clarity
will be
question? Do you?
a
Oh my
subset.
god. Yo, I
let
have
me
a
just
clarity
respond to what you
question.
said, and
It's
then you can ask the
procedurally
clarity question, okay?
It's procedurally prior to what you're about to say because there might
Okay,
be
yeah, go ahead.
conflation.
Go ahead.
Okay, are you saying that there is a contradiction in there being a possible world where it's not physically impossible for leprechauns to be instantiated?
A possible world where it's not physically. No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, perfect. So what's the
No,
problem?
what I'm, and yeah, that's why I was about to clarify. What I'm saying is that for any possible world, the physical possibilities of that world, the physical possibilities is a subset of the logical possibilities, right?
Okay.
So for any possible world, there will be things that are logically possible in that world, but are not physically possible in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And so God could not, like, there is a contradiction in God producing the physically impossible in a world, or is for God producing something that is at least one thing that is logically possible but not physically possible in that world.
If you're that's confused. If you're stipulating the if you're already stipulating the possibility, then trivially it's the case. What I'm saying is there are possible worlds where it's not physically impossible and it's logically impossible, and he can actualize those type of things. But if you're already okay, go ahead.
So you're saying that he can that what God can do is God can enforce the presence, or create the presence, or whatever word you want to use, whatever verb you want to use, of only those physically possible things in a world
which are simultaneously logically possible.
Well, so all physically possible things are also logically possible. I think we'd probably agree on that.
Right.
So your claim is just that God can do anything physically possible.
Logically possible also, because if you already stipulate that in the possible world it would be physically impossible for there to be leprechauns, then it's not even logically possible for him to embed leprechauns in that world.
Okay, so
we're not even saying he can do those kind of things.
So to be clear, in your view, it is your view that God cannot do anything that is physically impossible in our world.
Yeah, because you would say it entails a contradiction, correct though?
Well,
and I already said logical possibility. Wait.
No, I mean,
okay. Is there? Oh, let me ask you a question.
You can violate physical possibility.
Wait. Do you think there's a contradiction? Do you think there's a contradiction if we were to stipulate that leprechauns are physically impossible, but some being made leprechauns actual? So that means they're no longer
in the actual
physically
world.
Yeah, in any world. If the stipulation is leprechauns are physically impossible, and then you go to say God embeds leprechauns in those worlds, you'd agree that entails a contradiction, correct?
Yeah, sure. But then
okay, perfect. So we're already saying God can't. We're already saying God can't do those kind of things.
Right. So then the argument is just that God can only do the physically possible things.
It's that God can do anything logically possible.
Which that is equivalent in, as it seems like, as you're saying, with God can do anything physically possible, and only those things that are physically possible.
Trivially he can do things with. You'd agree that
only those things that are physically possible.
Hold on. You think obviously, but you think that rules out him also doing things which are logically possible? To be clear.
Okay, so
yes or no to that question,
I didn't
please.
say that. I didn't say that.
So it's compatible to say he can do all things which are logically possible too, also, right?
Yeah, that would be like saying A is that would be like saying, oh well, A is true. Yeah, well, A or B is true.
Right. Okay. So there's no contention on the logical
issue.
possibility.
So here's the issue. So it is logically possible in the, and this is where modal language gets very confused, because, and I think people misuse it quite a lot. It is, so it sounds like what you're saying is that it's not logically possible for a leprechaun to exist in our world. Right?
No, hold on. Remember, if the stipulation is that it's physically impossible.
Yeah.
Perfect. Because there's a contradiction entailed. So what do you?
Okay. So suppose for a moment that it's physically impossible for a leprechaun to not exist in our world. It's probably even physically possible because it's just like a short guy with like red hair. But say it's physically impossible for a leprechaun to exist in our world, then you're just saying God couldn't create a leprechaun in our world.
You'd agree that if we stipulate it's impossible, and that embedding that physicality would entail a contradiction, then God can't do that because there's a contradiction.
Yeah, so this omniscience property is restricted by that which is physically possible.
Logically possible also. I don't know what you're...
and
Okay,
physically
but-
possible. It's
But hold
okay,
on,
so
the physical possibility, it doesn't, that's trivial. The point I've been making is that God can do anything logically possible, and it doesn't seem like you disagree.
okay, so by omnipotence you mean, more accurately, God can do anything logically possible that is physically possible.
Yeah, well, look, let's be clear.
That's
You
trivially
think,
true, right? Under your view?
Let me be clear. You'd agree that physical impossibilities don't entail logical contradictions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So as long as you sign off on that, and we both agree that if you're stipulating something's physically impossible, and then you go to say, well, can God make that thing? Can God embed some physical thing of that kind? Then obviously no, because the stipulation is that it's already physically impossible.
Okay, so you agree that it's trivially the case that omniscience is equivalent to the impossibility of doing that which, or to being able to do only those things that are physically possible.
Only those things which don't entail contradictions.
Which means only those things that are physically possible.
If instantiating something which is physically impossible entails a contradiction,
you're dodging
you
so
do
hard,
it.
my guy. This is
I
like
already answered yes. I already answered.
So
I already
we
answered
agree.
yes. Are you crazy? Who's dodging? Are you crazy? I've been answering yes this whole time. I don't know why you're trying to charge me with dodging.
In fact, you don't keep saying yes. You keep saying
you've already.
no. I mean logically.
I'm being clear that
I'm
being clear that you're not straw manning. To be clear,
I'm not straw manning you. It just
okay.
Does, so I'm not.
When I said God
can
do anything logically, when I said God can do, when I said God can do anything logically possible, you agree that I.
It's actually well, okay, so it is equivalent to only being able to do those physically possible things if you stipulate an additional axiom, right? There's no intrinsic contradiction in creating a leprechaun in the actual world.
Right. Perfect.
And so
we don't
in fact, they're not not logically equivalent. The God that you believe in is actually weaker than that, unless you stipulate some additional property of the actual world.
Wait. You're saying God being able to do anything logically possible is not what I'm committed to? What are you saying?
No. So the point is that if you just take the proposition bare, then the God that you believe in is not one that can do anything logically possible.
The proposition bare?
Yeah. Alone.
The term bare is not a proposition.
B-A-R-E.
What are you talking about?
Not B-E-A-R.
What?
B-A-R-E, not B-E-A-R. You're confused.
B-A-R-E? Bare?
Yeah, bare. Like naked.
You think
alone.
that's propositional?
No, I'm saying the proposition is bare. It's alone.
Oh, so you're saying
naked.
if you take the proposition in and of itself.
Yep.
Okay, what?
The proposition in and of itself, being able to do that which is logically possible, doesn't say anything about not being able to create a leprechaun in the actual world, right?
Yep. Yeah, wait, you'd agree if creating a leprechaun in the actual world entailed a contradiction, then he couldn't do that?
Yeah, and it doesn't entail entail a contradiction logically.
If it doesn't entail a contradiction, then he can do it.
Okay, so it is your view that God can do things. Well, okay, actually I can clarify. So simultaneously, it sounds like what you're saying is that there is a contradiction in doing the physically impossible in the actual world.
Yeah, but the relevant modality is a logical modality. So the physical modality is
maybe I can write this down so it can be clear. So if I just write down a proposition, let's call it P, we just say that X is, or a leprechaun in the physical world is not impossible, right?
Under what modality, to be clear?
Is not logically impossible.
Okay, then God can do that.
Right, and so hold on, I'm making a point. I'm not saying that this is the case. I'm just making a point. So if this is the proposition, just viewed alone, if God can do all logically possible things, then God can create a leprechaun in the actual world.
Yeah, as long as there's no contradiction which is entailed.
But if you want to say that, oh well, God can't actually do that, then you have to add an additional proposition that
God can't do what?
Create a leprechaun in the physical world.
Only if it entails a contradiction, right?
My point is that the proposition alone doesn't entail a contradiction. It's a single proposition. It's not a conjunct. Okay. There's no contradiction built into the proposition. It's just a statement, right?
Then he can do it. So
but the point is if you also hold the proposition that a leprechaun, or the existence of a leprechaun in the physical world violates physical law, well, now he can't do it.
That means there's a contradiction entailed, right? There's a logical contradiction. There would be a logical contradiction.
P doesn't
there would
entail
be a
a
logical
contradiction.
Yeah,
P
yeah,
and
I'll
Q
tell you.
entails. No, you're confused.
Yeah,
P
the
and
P-
Q entails a contradiction.
Oh my God, this is the point I'm making. If you stipulate that it's physically impossible for there to be leprechauns, then you cannot say God can embed a physical leprechaun in that possible world, because you're saying it is physically impossible and it is not physically possible at the same time, which just means it's logically impossible.
That's why you need an additional proposition.
Which just means it's logically impossible.
Look, so logical impossibility or logical possibility depends on which axioms you're accepting or which propositions you're accepting as true.
This is just classical logic.
Right. So my point is that a proposition on its own, unless the definitions of the words in the proposition are, just understood to be mutually contradictory, a proposition alone is going to have a very hard time being logically impossible.
Yeah, you have to fix the modality.
False.
Okay, you're not giving an objection though.
I'm not even trying to give an objection. What I'm saying is that the God that you're suggesting, don't tell me what to do. The God that you're suggesting is either going to be able to do the physical impossibilities, or depending on which
he can do
propositions
physical impossibilities that don't entail logical contradictions.
He can do physical impossibilities that don't entail logical contradictions. Okay, so my contention here is that the scope of logical possibility is somehow now being restricted by physical possibility.
No, it's not.
Okay, so do you think that God can do the physically impossible?
Does it entail a contradiction is the question.
You tell me.
Okay, so you can have some
God
physical
actualize something in the physical world that's physically impossible?
You agree that embedding some physical impossibilities would entail a logical contradiction, right?
Embedding some physical impossibilities in the actual world?
Yeah, would entail a logical contradiction, right?
Sure.
Okay, those type of physical impossibilities.
To be clear, that's because I have some foundational positions about what physical possibility is and so on and so forth.
That's fine. So those type of physical impossibilities that entail logical contradictions, God cannot embed.
That would be all of them, in my view.
Oh, so under your view, there is going to be no. Well, then look, even under that view, that's just fine. That's just to say
that collapses logical. That collapses logical possibility to physical possibility.
That's not even a defeater, even if I was to accept that. By the way.
I mean, it may very well be. We'd have to be a little bit careful. We'd have to be a little bit careful. But you were using logical possibility everywhere here, and like for example in P2, your justification for your justification for believing P2 relied on logical possibility, relied on a truth table.
Yep.
But if we're talking, but if we have collapsed logical possibility to physical possibility, then that doesn't fly anymore.
Wait, so that. You got to give the defeater then, to be clear.
So truth tables truth tables are not how we establish whether something is physically possible or not.
If you just say the physical and the logical modality are one-to-one identical, then trivially the physical modality is now reduced to possibilities given non-contradictions. So everything I said still is permissible. What are you saying?
No, but now just looking at truth tables doesn't get you to physical possibility.
You agree if you collapse the modalities... I'm not saying that
they're one-to-one. What I'm saying is that...
Then they're not collapsed. If they're not one-to-one, they're not collapsed.
I'm saying that the application of physical or of logical possibility in your argument should have actually been physical possibility.
I deny that because I told the content of logical possibilities remain consistent. But I have a clarity question. Do you agree under the interpretation of omniscience or omnipotence that this being will be omnipotent, even if you want to say you collapse the two, it still meets the conditions that you can do. So you're saying this being
I don't know why such a thing would exist.
So why such a thing that can actualize any possibility exists?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no contradiction in God doing this. What?
That's
when we say he can do X,
like you have to justify the claim that such a thing actually exists.
Oh, right? Okay, so yeah. So once again, we can just take the conjunctive truth table. There's a necessary being, and this necessary being can do anything which is logically possible, and at least when evaluation is output, it is true. What are you saying?
Okay, so again, we're just relying on the same justification for P2. That like, you can't see how you can't see how it doesn't exist.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so and now I have to reveal my trap card that I've been holding for. How long have you been here?
Yeah, we can conclude. You're wasting my time.
I've been holding this trap card for like almost an hour now. So
we can conclude.
This was so.
Are you gonna give me a defeater, or we want to conclude?
Yeah, I am. So your P2 was that.
What's the defeater? What's premise one of the defeater?
Shut up and let me explain.
So now you're getting talking
shut
crazy.
Up and let me explain.
What's premise one?
Stop interrupting me, or I just won't be able to explain. Okay. I'm gonna mute you while I explain. Okay. So your justification for P2.
Don't mute my mic though.
Okay. Well then, don't overtalk me. Okay. When I'm done talking, you will know. So your justification for P2 and your justification for the existence of an omnipotent being appealed to noceums. Now, your justification for a noceum is that it's substantiated or used frequently in the philosophical literature. The problem is, atheism is substantiated and used frequently in the philosophical literature. So it seems like I'm justified in holding the atheist position.
Yeah, you're a little confused. So, wow, I didn't expect you to make this kind of blunder. So, do you remember what the noceum reference was saying? Maybe you don't. Remember, it was
the noceum reference is just that you can't.
It was in 1 second. I thought you wait. That was rhetorical.
So it wasn't a question.
It was rhetorical. It was rhetorical. So, the noceum talks about things being justified in virtue of the indispensability of defeaters, and obviously there's defeaters to atheism. And that's just the line of reasoning we've been going through. So this type of stalking horse you're trying to give is just not going to meet the noceum inference because there are defeaters. So that failed, but that was a nice try though.
No, but I'm sorry. So like, why can't I just say, oh well, I don't see how P2 could be. I don't see how P2 could be true. And in the absence of defeater, how can P2 be true? I don't see how an omnipotent being could exist. And in an absence of a defeater, I don't see how. Like I just reason to believe that an omnipotent being can't exist.
What? An omnipotent being? We've already given defeaters to believe that it's not going to be the case.
No. We were talking about omniscience before, and I'm fine with omniscience.
We've been talking about omnipotence,
but no. I asked you for why I should think an omnipotent being exists at all. We were just talking about what omnipotence means. You didn't actually give any justification for why I should believe an omnipotent being exists. You're confused now.
Okay. I'll deny that. I'll go over it again.
Yeah, I know you deny it. That's what a confused person says.
The reasons to believe the omnipotent being exists is just to take the conjunctive truth table. So we're just saying what it means to be omnipotent is you can, remember can is a modal verb, so it's possible. You can do anything which is logically possible. Now, we can take the necessary being and just run the same truth table. So we're just saying there's possibly this necessary being, which possibly is omnipotent, or just to say can do anything which is logically possible. So remember, there's a distinction between actuality and possibility. And all we're saying is that this being can do X.
Seems like you're actually not addressing the criticism here. Because I could just say, oh, well, the truth table. So we can take the proposition for the truth table.
Oh, I have one more thing to say.
That can do anything logically possible.
I have a supplementary thing. The thing is, when we talk about a necessary being, the necessary being necessarily exists because it exists in the actual world.
Obviously, trivially.
Okay, if it exists, okay, perfect. So if there's this possible necessary being with omnipotence, that's just to say in the actual world.
Why should I think that it has omnipotence?
Once again, because it's possible.
And if it's possible, I could also say that it's possible it doesn't exist.
I've already ran you past this.
It's possible that the necessary being is not omnipotent.
No, hold on. It being possible that it's not omnipotent doesn't defeat the possibility of it being omnipotent.
I'm sorry, I am justified in believing. I'm justified in believing that it isn't omnipotent.
That presupposes that you can restrict the amount of beings to one. That's just to say for any necessary being, it's only one. I deny that, by the way.
For any okay, that's fine. I can say it's possible that for every necessary being, none of them are omnipotent.
Okay, and what's going to be the argument for that?
Oh, noceums. I don't see an argument against it. And there's if you evaluate the truth table.
Okay, wait, there is a defeater.
There's a truth in the possibility.
There is a defeater. Defeater is that there is no contradiction.
Yeah, and the defeater for your view is that there is no contradiction for my view. So
yeah, what's the defeater? Yeah, what's the defeater?
The defeater is that there's no contradiction in my view.
Okay, and when you say there's no contradiction, what's being said there?
Yeah, that there's no contradiction in the statement that all possible necessary beings or none of the possible necessary beings are omnipotent. Where's the contradiction?
Okay, and if I can show you that there is a possibility, then that's false, correct?
Epistemic possibility or logical possibility?
A logical possibility, of course.
Well, you'd have to evaluate logical possibility, and you'd probably just rely on a no-CM again. So as long as you keep relying on no-CMs, I can keep relying on no-CMs. Do you see the parallel?
Wait. This is the funny part. What are your possibilities true? Hold on. What are what you said is possible? You'd agree that what I said is still possible, correct?
Epistemically or logically?
Logically.
No, I'm not going to grant that.
Okay, you don't agree. But on the onset, you agreed to this possibility.
Logically, not, or epistemically,
yes,
not logically.
Perfect.
We can go back to the beginning, and you can see that I agree
wait,
epistemically that these things could be real.
If we take what it means to be logically possible, is that in at least one evaluation is output is true, then what I said is logically possible.
If you take logically possible to just be I don't see the contradiction, then sure, but then where's the contradiction?
Okay,
but to be clear, I can just negate the entire argument and the entire thing goes through. So it's logically possible. It's logically possible that all of the necessary beings are it's logically possible that none of the necessary beings are omnipotent. Okay, what's the contradiction?
The fact that you've just procedurally prior you signed off to me saying you've already signed off on the onset that it's possible.
Okay,
so you can't go. No. Wait, hold on. Let me get the thought. Let me get the thought out. So you've already. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So you've already. Now you're gonna have to backtrack. I'm gonna have to make you concede. You've already signed. Wait, come on. Let me get the thought out. Let me get the thought out.
Okay, I'm gonna.
So on the onset, you already signed off that it's possible. Remember that there is this type of necessary being which is gonna be omnipotent, and then you backtrack and said actually it's not. You said. It's possible and simultaneously impossible, which just means your view embeds a contradiction.
Okay, but, so I did precog you. No. Let me clarify. The point is,
we can conclude if you have a defeater.
No. The defeater is exactly the contradiction, and the point is that if there's a contradiction and you use the same means of coming to the conclusions in both cases, then the means of coming to that conclusion cannot be reliable. So we cannot rely on these no-CMs
What I'm saying
to come to conclusions.
What I'm saying is your view. Your view embeds a contradiction. I've never signed off on a possibility.
Both views.
I deny that.
You can use no-CMs in a parity symmetric way to come to opposite conclusions, which means that you can't justify you can't use no-CMs to justify this kind of logical possibility.
Because for you to say that there's possibly a necessary being which cannot instantiate all possibilities, that's just to say there's something which is logically possible that this being cannot instantiate. That's just say there's a contradiction.
So you're saying,
and I'd like the P and not P.
I said P1 using method.
Do you have the P and not P?
Shut up for a second. I'm going to explain. So I said using method M, P1 is possible. Then I said that. So this is actually we can even make this. We shouldn't call it P1. We can call this Q. P2 using method M. Not Q is possible. Conclusion, and this is, we could formalize this, or then we could say P3, if using method M leads to contradictory conclusions, then method M is not reliable. Conclusion, method M is not reliable.
Okay. There's a few responses to that, so you're confused. So the method is only unreliable given the agent deploying it, for one. So when I deploy it, it's consistent. Now, when we investigate, when you try to run the no-CM
inference, unironically said, when I'm using this method, it's fine. When you're using it, it's wrong.
I'm gonna explain to you how that's the case. So when you employ
literally special pleading.
Wait, relax. I'm gonna show you how it's not. They're distinct. When you employed the no-CM inference and you said, well, look, I believe that it's possible for all necessary beings, they cannot instantiate all logical possibilities. That is just to say there's a contradiction entailed in the view. Now, the burden you have is to show the P and not P.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't say that entails a contradiction in the view. What I said is that it's possible not.
Yeah, okay, that just means that there are possibilities that they can't actualize. It's going to be the case that they can, or it's going to be the case that they cannot actualize.
But when you use the no-CM,
so you're saying
when you use the no-CM to suggest that my position,
how it doesn't work.
When you use the no-CM to suggest that my position is logically contradictory, you're contradicting it. Unless you can elaborate on how it is the case that Q, that not Q is Q produces a contradiction.
Oh my God. Do you agree that on the response you gave, it commits you to saying there's a contradiction in there being
using the method? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I want the P and not P. That's your burden.
I just wrote it down here.
What's the proposition?
Do you not follow?
What's the proposition in its direct negation?
The proposition Q is that for all possible necessary beings, at least one of them is capable of being omnipotent, say.
And what's the not P?
The negation of that. There exists no possible being that is capable of there exists no possible necessary being that is capable of being omnipotent. Or that
what's
is
the argument for
omnipotent.
the derivation relation?
What derivation relation? The point is I'm using an OCM,
You can't
a parody
you
OCM.
can't you have to give an argument for this is what I'm saying, you're not equipped. You can't merely give a P and not P. You have to give an argument for the derivation relation. I like a supplementary argument.
Are you confused about how I got? Are you confused about how I got to the negation from the original premise?
I want to show how it's embedded in the view, the P and not P.
I just gave you using the same. I mean, so you gave P1, right? You used the method, the no-CM
Yeah,
method,
but when I gave
and you
it,
said that
it
Q is
didn't come.
possible.
It didn't. But let me tell you the distinction. When I gave the no-CM inference, it didn't commit to there being contradictions in the contrary. When you gave the no-CM inference, it committed there to be contradictions in the contrary. What was extrapolated
in the contrary?
Yeah, taking the contrary because you quantified over all.
You mean in the justification that you're saying here? Or in
No,
the
I'm saying in a contrary view because you added the universal quantifier all necessary beings. That is to say there's impossible for there to be a necessary.
That because you were talking about the possibility of having multiple necessary beings. But if you want to just restrict to one necessary being, that's fine.
No, so then you have to backtrack then because look, you made the claim that for all possible necessary beings, it would be impossible for them to be omnipotent. Now, when you give the no-CM inference, that entails contradictions. When I gave it, it didn't entail contradictions. On the contrary, is the point I'm making. So the no-CM inference, the reasoning are not identical.
Are you saying that? So, are you saying that the thing I represented as not Q is actually not the negation of Q?
I'm saying that it's not going to be one-to-one identical. So it wasn't a
Okay, so we can just back up here. Do you think that this is reasonable? This argument that I've offered here.
I can't see your screen, but are you back?
Look at your
are you
phone.
like? Are you? I'm not in a position to. Are you conceding that point?
What do you mean? You're talking from your phone.
Are you conceding the point?
You
of
can't
there
even
being
address this argument.
I want to be clear. There was a contradiction which was like embedded, and I want to be clear. Are you signing off that there is no contradiction now?
No, I'm not signing off on that.
Okay, so you're saying I want an argument for the entailment relation then, because
just negate whatever your conclusion is that you're using no-CMs to argue for. Just negate that.
Okay, the conclusion of the no-CM inference that I'm getting at is that there's possibly a necessary being that's omnipotent. Now the conclusion
the negation is that there's not possibly a necessary being.
Wait, but by the way, there's no contradiction under my view of there possibly being a necessary being which is omnipotent, and there also possibly being a necessary being which is not omnipotent.
That's not what I'm saying.
No.
I'm saying that there is not possibly a necessary being that is omnipotent.
I know you have to give the P and not P. You have to give the argument for the derivation relation now.
I just put not in front of the thing that you just said. That's how you get that's how you get the not Q is a negation of the thing that you just said. Are you confused?
Let me be clear. Do you have a sub argument for the derivation relation?
Are you talking about how I'm deriving the not Q from the Q that you offered?
And do you know what? So the contradiction.
I just stuck the word not in front. Are you confused?
No, you're not tracking, bro. So you're saying if you take a view where you say possibly there's a necessary being which is omnipotent, you're saying that view entails a P and not P. Now you gave the P.
I'm not saying that.
Oh, perfect. So if that view doesn't entail a P and not P, then the line of reasoning you gave doesn't defeat what I'm saying.
No, it does. It does.
Okay, wait. Is there a contradiction in the?
I
have a clarity question. Is there a contradiction?
No, there's a contradiction. There's a contradiction in the way that you came to the truth of that claim.
Wait, is there a contradiction in the possibility of there being a necessary being which is omnipotent?
Oh, epistemically, is there a contradiction, or is there logically a contradiction?
Under which interpretation do you think it's impossible?
So, I think that the method you're using to come to the conclusion that there exists a necessary being that is omnipotent is unreliable.
I didn't ask about reliability. I asked, is there a contradiction? Is there a contradiction?
I'm not making the claim that there's a contradiction. What I'm saying
yes,
is
you are. You're committed to saying that.
No, I'm not.
You said all necessary beings are necessarily not omnipotent.
My claim here is that...
What?
Okay. So my claim here is that the method, like this is the... And it'd be great if you could look at your phone, which you're obviously talking through, so you're just kind of like lying that you can't look at the argument.
I'm not lying, by the way.
Okay, so then look at your phone.
I'm not in a position to. What are you saying?
What does that mean? You're not in a position to?
Yes, but
how are you talking to me?
Continue the line of reasoning.
Yeah. So the point is that there's a certain method that you're using to come to a conclusion that you're saying you can reliably conclude that it is possible that there exists a necessary being, that it's omnipotent. What I'm saying is that you can use that same line of reasoning to come to the opposite conclusion, which doesn't mean that
No, you can't.
either
I deny
conclusion
that.
or its negation is true. What it
I
means is that
deny
the
that.
method is unreliable.
So once again, I'll tell you this one more time, and then if you don't get it, like, we can wrap this up. So when you
It seems
use
like
the
you're not
method,
tracking,
when
but
you,
okay.
I am tracking. I'll still meant what you said.
Are
You
you?
said when we use this methodology, we can just basically stalking horse it, and you get the same outcome. I'm denying that for one of two reasons.
Okay,
For the
what's
first
the
reason,
impossibility of using
when-
noceums
one
to
second,
come
one
to
sec-
the
one second.
negation of the conclusion?
When I employed the noceum inference, it allowed for there to be a possible necessary being which is non-omnipotent. When you employed the noceum inference, you committed there to being no possible necessary being which is omnipotent. Now, when you employed the noceum inference, the difference is the entailment from your view is that there was a contradiction or contrary. The entailment from my
the
view
entailment
is,
from my view is not related to a contradiction to the contrary.
It is. When you run the
you're
noceum
misrepresenting
inference,
me. You're
okay, I have a
misrepresenting
quick
me.
question. When you run the noceum
A
inference,
noceum
does it
inference
entail?
is
Does it entail? Okay, so it doesn't
No, no, no.
entail that. It
No,
doesn't
no, no.
entail the impossibility.
I'm not saying that not Q is true because Q is contradictory. I'm saying not Q is true because I don't see any reason to think that not Q is false.
Hold on, wait. I have to be clear. When you run the noceum inference, does it entail the impossibility of the contrary?
It entails it. It's not. It doesn't require it.
It does. Wait, no. So if it entails it, it requires.
So I
it.
mean,
What are
like
you saying?
if obviously
entailment
obviously-
relations are required. What?
Obviously, if not Q is true,
That was a
then Q is
blunder.
false. Obviously, if not Q is
Oh.
true, then Q is false. But it doesn't follow
Necessarily false.
That. Obviously, yeah.
Okay, so then it is required.
My point is that you can come to the conclusion that not Q is true using some method, and that method is not just looking at whether or not Q is false.
Wow,
Does that
but we're
make
not even
sense?
talking. We're not even talking about where are you getting falsity from.
Are you high?
No one's high, bro. I don't see where you're even bringing up falsity. We're talking about possibility.
Okay, you don't understand I guess you just didn't track what I just said. So I'll say it in simpler terms that a kindergartner can understand. When I say that the fire truck is red, I'm not saying it's impossible that the fire truck is not red. What I'm saying is I see the fire truck and it looks red. So
Okay,
I'm using
perfect.
a method of in this case,
Perfect.
empirical observation to make a claim rather than proving the impossibility of the contrary.
Okay, so this is all that's needed as long as there being this omnipotent being entails no contradiction to what I said follows.
Okay.
Because
Does it-
my view is
so-
merely saying
Okay.
my view is merely saying
You
it's
are-
not impossible.
You are eternally confused. And I
I
understand
deny that.
Like,
I
get
I
it.
think you don't know what
deny it.
noceum
That's what an eternally confused person would say.
Yeah,
But my
that's
point
ironic.
My point is that I don't have to be committed a priori to the view that Q is impossible in order to come to the
Okay.
conclusion that not Q is possible.
Okay, so if you say not Q is possible, that does commit
That
you to saying the
implies
negation
it's not
is
an a priori. It's not an
O-
a priori
okay.
commitment.
So the implication there needs to be justified. I need an argument for the entailment relation.
The entailment
For the
relation that
derivation,
if not
for
Q
the
is true,
for
then
the
Q is
derivation
false.
relation.
Which
Now, how-
justification do you need?
Okay, so you're saying there possibly being a necessary being which is omnipotent is impossible, and then I want an argument for the derivation relation.
Yeah. Okay. So I take the argument that you've offered for Q. So Q being whatever you want it to be. I take the argument that you've offered for Q, which is a noceum inference, right? That's what you're using. I take that. I apply the same noceum inference for not Q, and then because I am now justified in believing not Q, I can therefore reasonably conclude that Q is false.
Okay. And once again, even if you want to say you're justified in believing that, there's still extra work that needs to be done, which is just a sub argument for the
concession, by the way?
derivation relation. No, it's not a concession because I can take it to be the case that you're justified and you still have not met your burden.
Just to be clear, the way that you're coming to the conclusion that Q is true is by the same means. So whatever verbs you like to use for why you think Q is true, I'm using the same verbs.
Yeah, once again, so let's be clear. When I said,
Let me be clear.
like we're going in circles. When I said that it was
know.
possible, when I said it was possible, that didn't commit me to saying that the contrary was impossible, right?
Wait, hold on. Of course you did.
No. So
wait,
on my view,
if you say that it's true that Q is possible, then you automatically hold to it's false that it's false. That,
when I said
quote,
when
not
I
Q
said
is
a
possible.
contrary, when I said a no.
Yeah,
you can say
if you're committed to
I'll
if
tell
you're
you
committed to Q is
how.
true, then you're also
I'll tell
committed
you how
to
you
not
can
Q
say
is false.
you can say it's possible that there's two necessary beings. One is omnipotent, one is not omnipotent. When you gave the argument, it didn't allow for that type of dichotomy relation of both the contraries being possible.
Oh no, it does.
But
And
we're
I get
going
that
to
you're confused
because
because
we can conclude
for
we're
all
going
relations are
circles.
the negation of
We're
existence
going to
relations,
circles.
right?
You didn't give an argument for there. Well, here's what I got you. Here's what I got you. I already,
you said there
I got you
exists
to a
possible.
necessary being. I got you to a necessary being, which is
your
omniscient, and then
absolutely.
and then
well,
yeah,
yeah,
and then
granting
you,
P2. I would just call that the universe, right?
Yeah, that's fine. But you already said you didn't believe in it, and now you're saying you do. But
No,
nonetheless,
you know, I'm on the fence about whether or not we can have brute facts or not. And so, you know, sometimes
brute facts can be
sometimes I think
necessary,
about
but that's irrelevant.
what?
Brute
You don't
facts can be
want to have the
necessary.
conversation, I'm sure. So the point is so like I'm willing to grant that, like, you know, because I was willing to grant that P2 is fine. Like, you know, we can just infer it based off of, you know, these reasonable philosophical conditions or philosophical or inferences. And so I'm willing to grant that a necessary being exists, and the necessary being also provides the ground for true things. And I would just call that the universe. It doesn't seem like it conveys any notion of a god that anybody talks about.
If you want to call that, that's fine. But
I mean,
you still. But when we get into
nobody
the
would reasonably call
omnipotence
that a
talk,
god.
when we get into the omnipotence talk, you're saying you think it's impossible, even under your view, you think it's impossible for the universe to be able to actualize possibilities.
Physical impossibilities.
Yeah, we already signed off on that, by the way. We agreed to that.
Yeah, of course it's impossible for the universe to actualize physical impossibilities. That's like trivially true.
Okay, and you agree that the universe can actualize logical possibilities
If they're physically possible.
Oh, okay. Wait, perfect. So what was this all about?
Because there's no well, okay, so we can back up. So the point is that, like, the universe can instantiate things that are physically possible if they're part of the universe, right? That's what they just exist. Yeah. I hold a B theory of time, so I'm not holding the position that things begin to exist, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that, like, yeah, the universe, like, physically possible things can happen within the universe.
And it can actualize logical
that's not the universe doing something, to be clear.
Can the universe actualize logical possibilities?
If by actualize, can it just be true that there are logical possibilities within the universe? That's probably
can it bring
fine.
about those? Can it bring about those?
You have to cash out bring about.
Wait, do you think? Okay, so do you agree there are some things that I don't know if you take it to be the case that everything always exists, but take something like
that sounds temporal language.
Yeah, like do you think you're eternal?
I think that I was born. My mind existed or didn't exist a billion years ago, exists now, and won't exist in a billion years.
So your mind was, you can, in the sense that I'm saying, it was brought about. Like your mind existing is not impossible.
Yeah, sure, I agree.
Okay, and it was brought about. So when I say the universe bringing about these type of things, we're just saying, look, in the universe, these
You're saying that in the universe things can happen.
Possible things, yeah, of course.
Yeah, physically possible things can happen. Sure.
Yeah. So the universe can bring about all logically possible.
I think saying the universe can bring it about is probably perhaps loaded. But if you just mean the universe can bring it about, you just mean that, like, that is actually part of the universe. Then sure, I'm on board with that.
We're saying all things which are logically possible can be instantiated.
All things that are physically possible.
Yeah, but notice how when you try to correct me, I'm not
correcting you.
I said when you try to.
I'm not.
We've already signed off.
Either.
We've already signed off that the physical impossibilities stipulating they're impossible can be brought about. So I don't know why you keep, like, bringing that up, but
because saying physically possible is more precise in this sense.
Okay, but they are necessarily logically possible.
Yes,
which is the point I'm making.
Possible things would be logically possible. Sure.
So then we agree it can bring about the logical possibilities, right?
As long as
that
are
simultaneously.
Okay. Again, as long
Traveling speaking, yes.
Two things to cash out: A, as long as they're physically possible, and B, as long as bring about, you just mean, like, it actually is part of the universe.
Well, I don't know what it means to say you think your consciousness was actually a part of the universe a billion years ago?
I hold to the B theory of time, so I take the universe to be the entire four-dimensional space-time, and so my consciousness is part of that four-dimensional space-time.
So your consciousness always existed, yes or no?
Always is a temporal word. I reject it.
You reject temporality?
No,
Wait, so when I say always,
I reject some sort of like eternality of the universe in some sort of external sense.
wait, so when you say your mind didn't exist, but now does exist, what's being said there?
What's being said is that we can point to a physical object in this case. We can point to a physical object that you know, you can point to it at certain coordinates in the space-time, certain time slices, and you can't point to it at other time slices.
Oh, okay. And when you say can, it's impossible, right?
When I say can't, yeah, I mean like it's just not present in those other time slices.
Oh, okay. So, but for the time slices where it's embedded, it must be possible, right?
Sure, I mean it's there,
and it's brought about in the sense that it's actual. Your mind is actual.
So the mind is actually part of the universe in totality, right?
Yeah, what I'm saying when I'm saying it's brought about, I'm saying it's actualized. So your mind is actualized.
Well, to say that it's actualized is to suggest that the universe, the entirety of the universe changed.
No, that's not what that means.
Then I don't know what you mean by is actualized.
It just means it's not a potential merely. It's saying that it's not merely, your mind's not merely potential, but your mind is actual.
There is no state of affairs where the mind was potential in this view.
Your mind has to be potential in the sense that it's possible. Because if your mind's impossible,
there is no state of affairs where the mind was potential but not actual. Using your definition of potential. That's fine. But all's being said here when we talk about bringing about is that the thing is made actualized. And made actualized is just. But it was never made actualized. It was just always actualized. Whatever.
That's fine. That's fine. When I say made actualized, that's just to say it is actualized in virtue of the universe.
Oh, okay. That's all you mean?
Yep.
Okay. So if by omnipotent you just mean that if we're applying omnipotent to the necessary universe, if by omnipotent you just mean that by virtue of the universe existing, all of the things within the universe exist. All the possibilities. Would that be equivalent to omnipotent?
All the things which are possible are instantiated in virtue of the universe.
All the things that are physically possible. I don't know if that's the case.
Logically possible.
Yeah. But that's restricted. I don't know if that's the case.
You don't know if what's the case.
I don't think that all physically possible things are instantiated.
No, we're saying all the things which are instantiated were procedurally possible, or they're necessarily possible. There can be possibilities which are not actualized.
I agree that all things that are actual are at least possible.
And and for all the things which are actual,
that's trivially true. Why do you keep saying trivialities?
So for all the things which are actual, the universe could bring those about. And remember, all we mean by bring about.
By bring about, you just mean that they exist because the universe exists.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so you don't mean bring about in any normative sense, in any typical sense of the word. So again, an idiosyncratic definition.
I don't know what you mean by normative sense. The normative talks are relevant.
That's why I corrected myself. I said typical rather than normal.
So
normative.
You sign off on there being a necessary being.
So I sign off on there being. So I sign off on the epistemic possibility of the universe being necessary. The universe also being, given the definition they've offered for grounding, it trivially grounds everything, including true propositions, and it trivially is the thing that allows for the existence of things that are actual. This doesn't sound a lot like a god.
Oh, and to be clear, I don't know why you're trying to conflate the epistemic and logical possibility, but
I'm not conflating them. I'm being very particular and very precise here.
Given the definition of God on the onset, you agree I met my burden?
Yeah. So if I define this as my God, does that mean that this thing exists?
Did I mean my burden? Yes or no?
Yeah, for your idiosyncratic definition of God.
Okay,
sure.
Perfect. You should
Absolutely.
Get cap up next.
So
as long as I met my burden, then I'm good.
Just to be clear, if I meet my burden and I say that a leprechaun is God, can you hear me? If I mean
I can hear you.
I define God to be a leprechaun. There are no leprechauns.
What is this hypothetical doing? On the onset you didn't agree with. On the onset you didn't agree, but now you agree. That just means I changed your mind.
I'm sorry. On the onset I was hearing out your argument, and then I realized
I asked you, do you agree? You said no.
Do I agree with what? We can go rewatch the replay.
With my definition of God being one which is actual, That's just to say the definitions are true.
So you're right. I did agree. I did agree with your definition of God, but then you made all of the pieces of your definition idiosyncratic.
No,
and so I
you
don't think
said
that that's
you
actually a
didn't
good
agree.
accounting of the God that you believe in.
You said you didn't agree.
I've actually been very, very precise this whole time.
I said,
and
do
I've
you
been like,
believe
oh,
this
your
God
definition of
exists? And you said-
omnipotent. Well, yeah, because I was understanding the words that you were using to define
Okay.
the thing in the typical sense.
So
but
then
if you
we
define,
share
to be
the same
clear,
view then.
So do you think that there is a mind that is responsible for the foundation
Well, now
of the
you already
universe?
asked. Now notice how you asked me that already. So now, like I
So do
said,
you?
we shared.
Do you?
Did you ask me that? Did you ask me that question on the onset of our
I don't
conversation?
think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Maybe
you
I
asked
did.
me.
But do
you
you?
did.
But so can
and
you answer the question again?
I already answered. The answer was
Can you
no.
answer it again?
I think
Okay. So you wait. You
Yeah.
don't think that there's a mind?
we've been over this. I told
So
you
this
that.
is just a linguistic dispute. You just called God the
not
thing that I called the
necessarily.
universe. Yeah.
Not necessarily because we have been
it's a
talking about
linguistic
ontic.
dispute.
We've been talking about ontic commitments because the being is not committing, but yeah. So
If you
there's
wanted-
just no
if you wanted to
disagreements.
come-
You saw-
If you wanted to come on and make a linguistic dispute, you could have just said that.
I told you. I think it's gonna be substantive. I think it's a substantive
Well,
dispute. but
look, it's not
because we've
substantive
been
at
talking
all.
about-
Because my view as an atheist is that it's at least epistemically possible that the universe is necessary and the universe is the foundational thing. In which case, it would obviously be the ground for all true propositions, and it would also obviously be
is
the
the
thing
universe
in virtue of
ontically
which.
committing?
Please, why are you cutting me off?
That's
The point
ironic.
is, so my point is that it is epistemically possible that A, the universe is necessary, and B, the universe is the fundamental thing, which means that, of course, under the definition that you've offered, it is the ground for all true propositions, and it is the thing by virtue of which all things within it exists. That's trivially the case, and it's still consistent with atheism. Now, you've decided to say that that is also consistent with your definition of theism, but then I could just say,
Wait,
oh, well,
I said that before. I said that before I knew your
leprechauns
view,
are-
right?
Sorry,
Hello?
you said what?
Wait, my view's been the same before I knew your view. What are you saying? You act like there's
Your
something,
view is
you act like
consistent with
there's something-
atheism.
You act like there's something. I deny that. I take there to be atheistic views that deny there to be these type of necessary. When we talk about atheism simpliciter, that's just to say there is no God, and you can just take God to be what I took God to be.
Okay, so if I take God to be a leprechaun, then atheism is true, right?
Analytically speaking,
Yeah.
If you
Okay,
take
so we
God to
agree
be a
that atheism is
leprechaun-
true. I'm glad that we agree.
if you take, okay, so you don't disagree with nothing other argument. So then, yeah.
Well, no,
Like I say, but-
I still don't agree with P2, and I'm still very skeptical
You've
of
already signed off on
omnipotence.
P2, but I have to go.
I literally didn't. If you go watch the replay,
you-
which of
you
course you
did.
won't. No, I
You
said I will
accepted
grant it.
P2.
We can go watch the
That's
replay.
what it
I
means
said
to
I'll
sign
grant it.
off. What are you saying?
I don't accept. That doesn't mean I accept
Well,
it.
you should rise cap though. We're going in circles.
My live's going to be ending in 18 minutes, so
All right. Good talk.
I don't even know who Cap is. But cool.
He's
I'm
a
glad that you're an
legend.
atheist.
I deny
Welcome
that.
to the
but
team,
okay.
bud. Oh, he ran. Wait, so I'm not wrong, right? Like, he was just like, his entire view is consistent with atheism, right? Am I crazy? Like, his view is consistent with like priority monism and necessitarianism about the universe, right? So, like, if you're a necessitarian about the universe and you hold priority monism, then that's consistent with his view. And philosophers would say that that is certainly consistent with atheism. Yeah, he said that there's no mind that created the universe. Like, what? Did I miss something? I'm pretty sure Kylo's just an atheist, right? Does anybody know Kylo? Is he actually just an atheist? I don't know who Cap is. Cap's in the guest box. So I'll just ask him some questions. Cap, do you know
Yeah,
Kylo?
what's up? Yeah, man.
So is he just an atheist?
No, we're both Catholic.
You're telling me that Kylo's Catholic and he said that there's not a mind that created the universe?
Yeah, you can be Catholic in this type of like, deflationary sense, but
It seems really
I'm
not
actually-
Catholic to say that there's no mind that created the universe, or that God doesn't even have a mind. That seems very
well,
not Catholic.
actually, most Catholics wouldn't hold that God has a mind in the typical sense that
But in
people
any
would
sense,
interpret mind from the. Well, I don't know if he said that, not in any sense, right? Like, presumably, he could be saying.
he didn't even
in-
say that God knows anything.
Well, I don't know about that claim.
His definition of omniscience was just that it grounds true facts, not that it knows anything.
Oh yeah, well, God can be the type of being which, if you hold to like ADS or something, then God can be identical to
Look,
that.
I'm a physicist, so ADS to me stands for anti-de Sitter space. I don't know what it stands for Catholics.
Yeah, it's absolute divine simplicity. It's just the
Okay.
view that God
Yeah,
isn't
yeah, sure.
composed of any parts and has.
Yeah,
no
I'm familiar with divine simplicity. I've just never heard the acronym. Look, so is Kylo's view, because he ran away, which is fine. He had to go. Is Kylo's view consistent with just the universe exists, it's necessary, and priority monism is true?
Only the universe exists. I don't know about that one. It depends on how you're defining universe.
The
universe
sum
has just
total of
based
all
on-
physical reality, let's say.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be consistent.
Why not?
Presumably because we want to say that there's some immaterial cause to the universe.
Now, is this Kylo's view as well?
I have no clue, but it wouldn't be consistent with just like the basic Catholicism.
Well,
Maybe
no,
he's like
I agree. I agree. It's not consistent with basic Catholicism, but it seems like after an hour and a half of trying to cash out all of the idiosyncrasies of Kylo's view, it sounds like the view that he presented is actually just consistent with the sum total of all physical reality being necessary and priority monism being true.
Yeah, well, maybe he's a Catholic in like the loose sense, right? I could grant that his view is contradictory.
Definitely. So I mean,
It's like the normal Catholicism.
I generally find talking with like actual theists a lot more interesting. And so I'd love to have a conversation with you, but I only have like 13 minutes. But I guess I'm not crazy, right? Like you listened to that whole conversation, right? And he was definitely the view that he presented is consistent with the view that I've just offered, right?
Well, it depends on if he's, because again, like if you hold to divine simplicity, you would be saying that God
He
is
didn't
identical
stipulate that
to
as part of his God, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying because there's different ways we can interpret it. Like if he holds to ADS, then you can stipulate that God is identical to that while also being identical to having other properties, right? Such as like having mental states that are
right. Perhaps he does, but the point is the view that he offered, the definition of God that he offered, doesn't have that characteristic.
Well, it can be both consistent and inconsistent depending on how you interpret it.
So, I guess what I'm saying is if he had said God has these three properties, being necessary, being omniscient in the way that he defined it, and being omnipotent in the way that he defined it, and God is absolutely divinely simple, and God has mental states or something like that.
Yeah, but those
then
properties that you just listed would be identical with God having mental states. Like those two properties would be identical.
Right. Only if you stipulate that ADS is true, right?
Yeah, but we're Catholic, so I would be assuming that he's.
But he didn't
about
stipulate that in the conversation. He didn't even tell me he was Catholic.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about like just his view. Like I know he's a Catholic, so presumably he would be. But in the just like talking in the conversation, I mean probably not.
Everything that he offered, it just sounds like it's consistent with kind of like a holistic atheist perspective. So I don't know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And maybe you know him better. You seem like a pretty chill dude. Kylo, I don't know, came on a little strong, but maybe he's a normal chill dude. It seems like he was trying to get me to concede that his idiosyncratic definitions are a concession of theism, even though they're consistent with the atheist view that I just espoused.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. It seemed a little bad faith to me.
Yeah, it depends on how you slice it up. But are you going to be live tomorrow or something? I could come back and have it.
If you wanted to, so I will be on Unapologetic on Sunday morning, around the same time. You could always come on there.
Yeah.
Ian and Justin will be there as well.
I was interested in having a discussion on the fine tuning argument.
Yeah, maybe come by there, because I'm happy to talk about fine tuning, and Justin will probably be bored out of his mind because Justin hates philosophical conversations, but Ian and I love to talk about fine tuning and stuff like that.
I had a discussion with him, and he wasn't having like the
Justin.
Like, yeah.
Justin is a. Do you know Justin's story?
No.
So
I just know that he's like good on like scripture and stuff.
So he was like a Bible believing Christian. He went to seminary. He graduated with a Master's of Divinity, and he realized that it's all kind of like, because when you learn in seminaries, you learn a lot of the historical stuff, and he's like, none of this makes any sense. This is all nonsense. And so like he doesn't really care for all of the philosophical stuff that happened after, say, 300 AD. He's like, look, the Bible was written by people. We can figure out what it means, and it's obviously not true. That's his position. So he doesn't really care for the philosophical stuff. Even then,
it just seems like he would like, even then, if he doesn't really care about the stuff that after like 300 AD, there's like whole like philosophical works from back then about God, right? Like,
yeah, no. He doesn't even he hasn't given me that date. All I'm saying is that like if it's not in the Bible, then he doesn't really care about it.
Oh yeah, that's understandable.
And so like that's just his thing, and I can understand that perspective, and but I do think that the philosophical arguments are interesting at least. But yeah, I do have to end the live, and I should read some super chats. So, but yeah, feel free to come in on Sunday. We'll be on TikTok and on YouTube and all of the other places. So yeah, if you want to stop by there. But yeah, thanks for coming up, and thanks for making me. I feel like I was being gaslit about being crazy, but I guess I'm not being gaslit, so I appreciate that.
Have a go now.
All right, take care. Good advice to bring up Cap. All right, we do have a bunch of super chats. I didn't read any today, so we're just going to spend a lot of time and read them because you guys are super generous, and I do appreciate it. I don't want the live to end. I love it here. Well, we'll see. From Mechaneering with the $5, if I send you a paper I co-authored that proves Mercury sucks and is the worst planet, will you hop on the Mercury hate train? Never. Mercury, free Mercury, justice for Mercury, hashtag down with Forest Falcai. From Wattcast with the $2. Oh, actually, I need to write down when Kylo got off, but Kylo got off at like 2:45. Okay. Are you agnostic atheist or strong atheist? Confidence level 95%. I don't know. It's hard to put a number to it. I'm pretty certain, but I'm not absolutely certain. From Dr. Fudge with the $5. I like how you went to kink instead of just general thrill seeking. Still the fear response. True. Still the fear response indeed. From Grimmy with the $5. Pain is not always a negative like working out. Also hydration. Okay. I will hydrate. From Dr. Fudge with the $5, get based, nerd. Yeah, just get based. It's super based to be based. QBX sent 1,000 joules, which is very appreciated. I don't know how much money that translates to, but I do appreciate it. From Brian Peck with the $5, if God can only be understood fully in Arabic, he's an exceptionally poor communicator. Yeah, I agree with that. From Chase Teaches Physics with the $2, Phil Bros, stop giving idiosyncratic definitions. Fun typo, but yeah, like obviously I'm not going to sign off on a necessary being that's omniscient and omnipotent in the traditionally understood sense. But if you define those things in a way that like a non-agential existing thing can be, then sure, maybe I can sign off on those. From Adam Hurst with the $12. So I now time travel. So I know time travel is impossible, but if it were, I'd use it to eliminate Thomas Aquinas. True. From Oppolite with the $5, I hear Kylo's Cheetos mouth smacking his chips ahoy. I hear Kylo's Cheetos mouth smacking his chips ahoys and still not bathing. Why he got kicked out of his parents' house. Let's not kink shame him, okay? He likes those chips ahoys. He can have the chips ahoys. From Game Master Flash with the $10, I really wish you would call Phil Bros on how many word salad puzzles they think it takes to know a supposedly obvious God exists. You'd think it would be ultra easy if you wanted us to know. Look, I actually can appreciate like a fleshed out argument. Like I don't get mad at Phil Bros. I think that Phil Bros can be annoying, but I was trying to be extra charitable to Kylo, and I think that that's okay. I think being charitable is a fine thing. From Eat Some Shorts with the $5, does private literature mean it's in their diary? Yeah, that was a little cringe, and I should definitely put that in. Because that was really funny. Like, what do you mean private literature? From Chase Teaches Physics with the $10, and now that we've redefined every word to mean something it doesn't mean, I've made an ass of myself with every sentence because I refuse to speak like a normal human. It's time to pretend I won. That's exactly what happened at the end. Yeah, like, look, I'm happy to accept whatever definitions people use to make a point. The point is that if you then equivocate and say, well, then I've demonstrated that a necessary, all-knowing, all-powerful being exists. Like, no, you haven't. That's just not what that means, right? You've changed those words to mean something that I agree with. But now, it doesn't mean what those words mean. Like, those words have meanings, right? When used in when used in like normal conversation, those words mean something. From Brian Peck with the $5, how does one actualize possibility in a not actual world? Also, doesn't this assume a theory while pretending there's nothing but the atemporal? Yeah, I brought up a theory with him. He just means that to actualize something, he just means that it's actual. And the whole business about it being actual in a not actual world, well, he just means that it obtains in a possible world. So you can redefine a lot of things. From Matty Meister with the $5, Kylo was so caught up in philosophical jargon that he can't track common things like the proposition is bare. Yeah, that was weird. Like what happened there? That was something. From Herman Preet with the $5, you got to turn down the guest. He's way louder, and when he speaks over you, you can't be heard. Oh, that's good to know. I wish I'd seen that earlier. I try to keep my audio at a decent volume. But you know. From Matty Meister again with the $5, look for the bare. It's too many syllables. Bare propositions, the simple bare propositions. Forget about your worries and your strife. It is good. Yeah, he heard it as the proposition is literally a bear. Bears are propositions. Super Pizza, thank you for the 1,000 joules. From Dead Channel Dragon with the $2, if God is unknowable, then the Bible can't be true. That's interesting. That's also probably true. And from Gerd Ernger with the $2, GG Kylo, you became a leprechaun believer. I guess so. Oh, you believe in God? Well, I define God to be leprechauns, so you must believe in leprechauns. That's basically what that was that whole conversation. Oh, you believe in something that is identical to the universe or to a necessary universe in priority modalism? You must be a theist. Also, yeah, what was that about? He's not in a position to look at his phone? Where was he? Yeah, it was Kylo KG. From Love Techion with the 25 Polish zloty, if I understood correctly, do you think physical impossibilities are logically contradictory? Why? Just interested? Love the debates. No. The point is that physical possibilities are logically possible, but physical impossibilities could still be logically possible, in that they could obtain in a logically possible world, but not a physically possible world. So, for example, gravity. It's like logically possible that gravity is repulsive rather than attractive, but it's not physically possible, right? Like there's no contradiction in gravity being repulsive, but empirically that doesn't stand up to the physical constraints that are in our universe, right? So that's the thing. So there are logical possibilities that are not physical possibilities. Every physical possibility is a logical possibility. Physical impossibilities can still be logically possible. Hopefully that clears things up. All right, let's make sure that I didn't miss any. So we got a new Patreon, Dave, becoming a $10 Patreon member, which is very much appreciated. Thank you for being here, Dave. Thank you for joining the party. And now you have access to the debate notes, by the way. We have $20 from Bacon Bush for Howdy Here's Money, which is very appreciated. And we have, I think that's it, but that's an important email that I should look at. Okay. All right, so that is everything that I got for you guys today. It is noon, which means I want to go eat coffee. Oh, we have one more. We have one more for Matty Meister, and this is funny. Maybe actualize the position to look at his phone. Yeah, I don't know. Like, why couldn't he? Who is Wubby KG? What's with all these people with KG at the end of their name? Is this like a bit? Like, let's bring up Wubby for like 30 seconds. Wubby,
Yeah, why are you running from me, Dr. Blitz?
What does KG
Why are
mean?
you running?
What does KG mean?
Knowledge gap, good sir?
Is
knowledge
that
gap.
So is
Yeah,
that why you guys all
I'm
have
a-
KG at the end of your name? Because you've been
I'm
knowledge
formally
gapped?
trained under Cap and Kylo KG in the Knowledge Gap clan. I'm a purple belt. So just to be
okay.
clear about this,
Yeah,
good
so
sir,
you've been
I'm going to be
knowledge gapped is what you're
presenting the
telling me.
KG. No, I knowledge
no,
gap.
You won't. No, you won't. The live stream's over. I just wanted to ask what KG stood for. It stands for knowledge gapped, I guess. That's Clark. That's funny. That is like maximally cringe, by the way. If that's Clark, that's really funny. But anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know that we spent like an hour and a half with a very aggressive Philbro who inevitably defined God to be equivalent to a necessary universe. But you know, it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we spend some time with some more you know, people. So I'm gonna end the live stream here. If you guys want to follow me, you guys know how to do it. Click the little buttons in the various places. If you guys want to support me, you know how to do it. You can, there's Cash App, there's Venmo, there's obviously things on Discord, or sorry, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitch. You can also check my website. It's just blitz.phd, and you can follow me there. All right, last super chat from Gerd and Journer. He was able to read the screen when he was giving out his argument, but suddenly couldn't look at the screen when you typed yours out. I know, that was rough. That was rough for him. But anyway, like the Philbro that's just been cooked, I'm going to go cook some lunch. Thank you guys.